Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Review of items not listed. You've got an addendum, okay? All right. Councillor Malloy, his mother was rushed to Sunnybrook this morning, so we know that she hasn't been well, so we hope that everything is going well, but he will not be here today. Roger, welcome. Now, would you like to stand or would you like to sit? Well, I still got a pretty mean pitch, so.
Well, good morning, Your Worship, and members of Council, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to once again address Uxbridge Council and give you an update on some of the things that have gone on in the last year and some of the things you hopefully can look forward to in 18. In the past year, we've made some solid progress on the goal of increasing accountability and transparency. Regional Council has passed the bylaw adjusting its composition to better reflect the population patterns in the region of Durham. We now have a council code of conduct, a closed meeting protocol, an ombudsman, and an integrity commissioner all in place. More regional information is also now freely available through our open data program, from GIS data to transit routes to health indicators. It's there for the public's information and use any time of the day. And we'll add more data to the catalog over time. Technology is helping us improve public awareness of our access to regional services as well. The region's website, durham.ca, is being revamped, and in 2016, the use of social media at the region increased 53%. To work better with businesses, the region now issues and accepts bids over the internet for regional works projects. And in February, our housing division introduced an online system to help match people applying for rent geared to income housing with suitable units. This is the first in Canada, and we're very pleased that it's being so successful. We also use data from our intelligent transportation system to better monitor our managed traffic congestions in real time and hopefully improve safety. Supporting the health and quality of life of our residents is another key regional priority. And after extensive consultation, the region worked with partners to develop our age-friendly strategy for Durham. In April, Regional Council approved the strategy as a guide for actions across the community. The Durham Council on Aging held their first meeting in September, and we look forward to this enthusiastic group of partners on implementation. For young families, high-quality child care is an essential support provided by the region. In 2016, child care subsidies were provided for 4,352 Durham children. With provincial funding, which was recently announced, our target is to serve 670 more children by the end of 2017. This is good news for most of our vulnerable children, and it's included in the provincial budget this year was also funding for the Grandview Children's Centre being built in Ajax. Creating sustainable communities is another priority for the region as well. Sustainable infrastructure and facilities is a key part of the region and what makes it a success. In 2017, the region made capital investments of $81.2 million for roads, $64.3 million for water supply, $72 million for sanitary sewage systems, and $29.9 million for regional transit. In 2017, the region completed the rehabilitation on Sanford Road from Concession 6 to Concession 7, and Zephyr Road from east of Concession 5 to Concession 6. Rehabilitation of Regional Road 30 from Vivian Road north to Davis Drive is targeted for completion before the end of this year. Subject to budget approval, our proposed 2018 budget for capital program includes $2.5 million to work on the township's replacement of Uxbridge Brock Culvert on Regional Road 57. In 2017, Durham Regional Transit introduced some new services to North Durham. This includes Route 950, Saturday service between Uxbridge, Scugog, and North Oshawa. In Scugog and Uxbridge, we also launched weekday on-demand service for residents outside of the conventional service area to connect to towns. With this service, customers call DRT one business day ahead to pre-book their trip. And last summer, the region released its 2031 Transportation Master Plan for public review, and it should be approved before the end of this year. Along with roads and bridges, this plan includes more cycling, pedestrian, and transit options in our mobility network. Water and wastewater projects in Uxbridge for this year included a Class EA for the additional water capacity. This EA is progressing, and there will likely be a public information center this spring. Upgrades to the aeration of the Uxbridge Water Pollution Control Plant to maximize use of its plant capacity and design will begin in 2018, with construction slated for 2019. Replacement of the Planks Lane water main in conjunction with the township's road program, replacement of the water main and sanitary sewer on Collins Street in tandem with the township's program as well. This year, the region and Uxbridge Council approved in principle the Durham Community Climate Adaptation Plan. Both of these plans and the federal government and provincial governments have endorsed and praised this plan as the gold standard for the country. It identifies 18 programs that the region and local municipalities can build into our bridges or into our budgets and capital programs to help us cope with what we know will be extreme weather patterns. Growing and diversifying our economy continues to be key objectives. Regional Council adopted a 5-year new economic development strategy in May, and our trade missions to China are beginning to pay off with investments here in Durham, like Hand Steel here in Uxbridge. Locally, we're working with Spark Center to support innovation and encourage startup companies, and Durham belongs to the GTA Economic Development Organization, known as Toronto Global, which assembled the Toronto region's bid for the Amazon's second headquarters. The bid includes 2 Durham sites, and it was a great opportunity to showcase Durham not only to Amazon, but to the world. Other projects currently underway include the development of a regional broadband strategy, Durham's submissions to Metrolinx in response to the draft 2041 Regional Transportation Plan, and a nuclear emergency exercise at the Pickering site with OPG and many others. One of the challenges ahead for 2018 is, without question, the legalization of cannabis. Regional Council feels this change is happening far too quickly. However, implementation is coming in July, so regional staff and DRPS are fully engaged on this issue. Your Worship, members of Council, these are just a few of the activities for 2017 and 18, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Questions from councillors? Councillor Hyatt.
Thank you, Roger. It's always a pleasure to have you in the Great White North up here. So, just a question. You didn't mention in your brief about the culvert project that we're going to be doing in Uxbridge in next spring. I know there's going to be the new culvert project that we're going to happen downtown. Is there I know staff has been meeting with regional staff over this, and we're going to hopefully work together to roll out a marketing plan, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I just wondered how you see that unfolding, I guess, from the regional perspective. Do you have any comment on it?
Well, it's a major piece of work, and I think public awareness and public participation will be important.
Right.
And I think the region and the town will work very closely with the businesses and the citizens to make sure it runs as smoothly as possible. but it's a major construction project.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting input now from businesses saying, you know, what's happening, where do you see this heading? So I'm just kind of priming the pump, I guess, because it's going to happen sooner than we think. So I'm just hoping everybody at the region's on
It always
side.
comes up faster than people realize.
Absolutely. So
We'll make sure that there's good public consultation.
that's great. Thank you, Roger.
Councillor Bryan?
Thank you for coming up, Mr. Chair. I was going to echo the same sentiments, but Councillor Hyatt went first because this is going to affect all of us, but certainly it's on our wards. We're going to get a lot of those. But certainly if we've got that reassurance that you're going to help out, and certainly we can help with the communication, I really appreciate that.
I think we've had some pretty major work in downtown Oxbridge before. And
Yeah, so it's not a first.
It's not new, but it's always good to keep the public and businesses aware, and
Absolutely.
council as well.
Great. Thanks again for coming up.
Councillor Barton?
Thank you very much for coming up. Great to see you again.
Good to be seen.
Just a question. Your on-demand transit system that's been implemented, how's it going so far up here?
Very good so far.
Is it okay?
And we hope it only continues to get better,
Okay,
but it's been a good response so far.
okay. And do we have anyone who's following the Innisfil Uber collaboration? From
Innisfil
Durham
Uber?
Transit? Well, so Innisfil decided to let Uber run part of their local transit. Do we have anyone from DRTS monitoring that program that you're aware of?
I have no idea, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I'll find out for you.
Hey, thank you very much, Roger. Appreciate it.
Okay, first of all, Roger, it's good to see you again, and, I just wanted to say and let you know that the 3 northern municipalities are getting together, to talk about the, proposed DCs for transit, and, just to give you a heads up, we're opposing them, because we don't feel that the service that we get warrants DCs for, particularly in the outlying areas. So we will have a discussion on it, but I don't want to come down to the region and not let you know that we're having this discussion. As you well know, and you have stated publicly, that the 3 northern municipalities are certainly, for what we're paying, we're not getting the service we are, and that's because of the size of us and population and any number of reasons. But we are going to have a talk about it because it's hard enough to get industry and building here now without adding that cost, for which people are going to be saying to us, you know, why am I paying for transportation DCs or transit DCs when in fact, particularly where our industrial park is, there's no way you can get there. So,
Well, I understand. I hope it carries at regional council, because if it doesn't, there's no DCs for transit next year. None.
yeah.
So any improvement you will get, you won't get because there's no money. So I understand your position, and I think you know we've been working to try and improve the service. But the region, I look at it as a family. Sometimes you pay a little more for things, sometimes you pay less for things. EMS, police, social services, all those things, we all pay a share.
Mhm.
Some get more service than others, but some pay less than others for the same service. So, I understand the issue, we're working with it, but when it comes to regional council, I'll be pushing very hard for the DC bylaw.
Well, I want the DC bylaw to go through too, but I want the 3 northern municipalities to be exempted from it.
And that won't happen this council meeting, and it's the last council
Well-
meeting to get it done.
I'm gonna try.
Well, I
because
understand that,
I
but
have to,
we can't change the bylaw.
well, you know what?
I'm just,
We'll see.
I'm giving you a heads up.
Yeah, I'm giving you heads up. We're fighting.
We'll see who wins.
Well, I have no doubt, but at least people will hear us. And I
think it's fair that you speak up on it, because I really want regional council to invest money in transit. I think you know that. And the more we invest in it, the better it'll be, not only for the north, but for the south. And it'll show Metrolinx in the province that there's life east of Markham Road when it comes to transit dollars. But without DC money, we're in big trouble.
I think that, and I would encourage you to, go to Georgina, or not go to Georgina, but to talk to Georgina, because they are using Uber, for part of their rural areas where they're not, you know, it's less costly to their residents in the rural area than having transit. So maybe you could talk to them too
I'll be
before
happy to do that.
before our transit meeting. I think we have a transit meeting on Thursday.
Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah, so, anyway, thank you very much. Can you take a picture of him? Certainly.
You can vote through, you'll get a good glare.
Yes, please. Do you want to get that, Laura? Thanks a lot, Roger. Okay, the next deputation we have is from our Chief of Police, Paul Martin, and he's going to give us a update on Bill 168, workplace violence and harassment. So welcome. Okay, so that's what I've got in front of me, but I'll tell you what, you talk whatever you want to talk about.
Yes.
So
Well, good
what are
morning.
we going to talk about, Paul?
Well, good morning, Your Worship, and members of council. Well, I can certainly speak on the subject from a DRP perspective, but my understanding was I was going to speak about Bill 175, the Safer Ontario Act, and perhaps a provincial funding, which AMO has been lobbying for quite diligently. So it's for the new provincial funding model for municipal police services. So that was my understanding of what might be of interest to Uxbridge Council this morning. So
Yeah, you please do that, and
but
I'll just change my deputation.
Well, you know, I can certainly speak on the subject, but I'm not sure it would be quite as scintillating as the discussion we hopefully prepared for you today. Now, I did have some prepared remarks. What I'm going to try to do is just in the interest of time, I'm sure you have a very busy agenda ahead of you, is try to hit some of the highlights, both for the new funding model, and I'll touch on that because it obviously has implications across the region, and maybe I'll touch briefly on Bill 175, which is the new Safer Ontario Act, which will replace the current Police Services Act, which has been around since 1990. So for the past 12 years, the provincial grants to police services have been delivered through three different main funds. One was the Community Police Partnership Grant, which is referred to as CPP. It was designed to increase community patrols and enhance traffic enforcement. The other was the Safer Communities 1,000 Officers Partnership Program, more commonly known or certainly referred to in our organization as SCOOP. It was designed to fund 1,000 officers across the province of Ontario, so it's been funded for the last 12 years. And then it started in Toronto, but the Provincial Anti-Violence Intervention Program, PAVIS as it's known, we refer to it as DRAVIS here, which is Durham Region Anti-Violence Intervention Strategy. There's been money provided for that over the last several years as well. Now that, for us, we receive approximately $3.3 million annually under those three programs. And so it's spread out, actually, when we look at how it's spread out through our organization, it actually funds partially about 90 different officers throughout our organization. We have to identify who they are. When you actually break it down, it's equivalent to just over 30 full-time equivalents, 30 full-time police officers when you actually look at the total dollars. So it would have a significant impact should it be cancelled, is my point. What's happened in 2016, it was announced towards the end of the year that those three programs would be discontinued and the Police Effectiveness and Modernization Grants would replace it, PEM for short. Now, the idea behind PEM is to move towards more collaborative approaches to policing and to modernize policing. That was the theory behind it. The timing of it was so short that there was a lot of advocacy on the part of different organizations, including our own regional council, other regional councils, I believe AMO as well, but there was a number of different groups, the OACP, the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, advocated to give us more time. What happened was is they delayed the implementation of PEM. In fact, what they did was is they've had a hybrid model for the last 2 years. So you could either apply under the new police or the effectiveness and modernization grants, or you could apply under the old grants. We've been instructed for the last 2 years to apply under the old grants. At least we're guaranteed that amount of money that we've been receiving for the last 12 years. And that's the approach that we have taken and our Police Services Board has taken. That was for the 2017-2018 year, and now for going into 2018, the province has said the same thing, is that you can apply under one or you can apply under the other. We have, again, as I said, been instructed to apply under the old grants to make sure that we at least have some continuity and some understanding of exactly what funding we can look forward to for the 2018 fiscal year. So we expect that perhaps next year for the 2019 budget we will have to apply under the Police Effectiveness and Modernization Grant. We hope that the level of funding continues, and certainly our track record of innovation and efficient use of resources and the adaptation of new technology is well known throughout the province, and we would fare well. The concern is that, from my perspective, is that what they're looking for under the Police Effectiveness and Modernization Grants is new programs all the time. So it'd be interesting to see just how it plays out, and the justification and the paperwork that would be required to justify those programs going forward, I would suggest to you, would probably be onerous at best. But we will do our best to try to maintain the same funding, but as you can, as I indicated, the amount of money that's involved and how many full-time equivalents it would affect is significant. If we lost 30 police officers or funding for 30 police officers, full-time equivalents, it would be a significant blow to our staffing. Now that, just to give you a perspective, that's about 1.6% budget hit on our police services budget, just to give you an oversight on that. So we will do our best, and you know, we have a number of new programs underway right now. Some of the funding under the Police Effectiveness Modernization Grant are for things like hub tables, situation tables, which you may or may not be aware. We've had a table for just about 2.5 years now. It started in Oshawa. The catchment area was considered South Oshawa, and wherever we would extend beyond that, we pretty much had the catchment areas extended into Ajax, even Pickering, and out to Clarington. We were seeing some involvement from the north as well. What we have done is, you may or may not be aware, we now have a table in the north as well. That was our next extension. It's a pilot program right now. It seems to be working very well. And what we've been using is through the with our medical partners through their telehealth or program, where they can beam into the table in the south, and we can have our people here that are presenting the cases work with our experts and other table members in the south. So we're addressing some of the concerns in the north at the same time. So it's working quite well, and we're going to probably move towards making that a more permanent function with the north. And then the plan is from there, if we have the demand, we will also open a table in the west. So this is a collaborative table. There's 32 human services agencies that sit around the table at any given time, including child welfare, policing, mental health, addictions, all different agencies that sit around the table, family counseling, and so on, that sit around the table, bring cases to the table where people are at acute elevated risk of perhaps having an incident somewhere down the road. And these agencies work together to try to reduce that risk before it becomes incident-based. So we're trying to be more proactive. There are opportunities to become even more proactive than we are now. But what I can happily report to you is, through these table interventions and bringing all the agencies together to work collaboratively, that we have helped over 300 families and individuals. And I'm happy to report, in the 2.5 years, that of all the people and cases that have come to the table, we've only had 2 repeats. So when you think about those numbers and the type of effective interventions as opposed to where perhaps in the past police and other agencies have gone back repetitively to different addresses and dealt with the symptoms of the problem, we're actually dealing with the root causes of the issue. So we're very happy to report those results. So I'll leave it, I think, that part of it to any questions that the council may have, and I'll just quickly do a quick overview of what the new Police Services Act or the Safer Ontario Act is going to look like. What you may or may not be aware of is that this is actually an omnibus bill, and it's there's actually the Police Services Act itself is going to be split into 3 different pieces of legislation, and from there the legislation will have numerous regulations. So it's please stand by. We'll see how this plays out, but the regulations are probably where the proof's going to be in the pudding. But what you're going to see is essentially greater emphasis on the boards themselves, their training, their composition, their oversight. They're going to strengthen the oversight of the police services boards, as well as strengthen the oversight of the 3 current oversight agencies. There will be some name changes. The Special Investigations Unit that looks into criminal responsibility on the part of police officers, their name will remain the same, but their authority will be enhanced. And some of the things that will change for them, specifically in their enhancements of oversight, is they will be able to investigate former police officers as well as current, strengthen their ability to investigate police officers that engage in activity off duty. They will also have now authority, which they don't currently have, to investigate auxiliary officers, volunteers, and special constables. So those are some of the things that are coming with the SIU. The Office of the Independent Police Review Director is going to change, thank goodness, because I've always found that a bit of a mouthful at the best of times. And they're going to be called the Ontario Policing Complaints Agency. Whether it's the current head or a new person, but I suspect it will be Jerry McNeely, the current head of OIPRD, will become the Inspector General of Policing. That will be the new title. They will have greater and more enhanced oversight abilities to investigate, audit police services and police services boards. So that will be coming in their legislation. And in fact, within 5 years, currently now the way it's been designed, for those of you who've been around as long as I have been, there was a police complaints commission some years ago. They were overwhelmed with the amount of work that they had, and it actually folded. When the OIPRD came into play, they had a bit of a hybrid model where they would investigate some investigations, some they would refer to other agencies, other police agencies, and some they would refer back to the agency where it had emanated from, in our case, to our police service. That, in the next 5 years, is going to end, and they're going to be responsible for everything once again. So there will be a transition period, but that's going to happen. And then what we call OCPC now, the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, will also be renamed and to the Ontario Policing Discipline Tribunal. And what's going to happen is that it's actually in the Act right now that I'm responsible, the Chief of Police is responsible to maintain order and discipline, good order and discipline within the ranks. That's actually going to be taken out of the legislation because they're actually going to take all responsibility for discipline out of my hands. So this is now going to be in the hands of this tribunal, and the associations will continue to be able to hire whatever lawyer they would like to defend their member, but we will now have provincially appointed crowns, and it will all be run through the tribunal. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the long run, but I don't necessarily agree that the playing field will be even. But we'll see how that plays out. But that's the plan. And the Ontario Ombudsman now will be able to have authority to investigate and look into those 3 oversight agencies. So this piece of legislation is 417 pages long. I've tried to do my best to distill it down for you. It'll be interesting to see how this works out. Some of the regulations that are being promised, and I know AMO was very interested in this, is the ability to civilianize or perhaps contract certain things out. That is probably the most contentious piece, even more so than suspension without pay, which will be coming in this legislation. Right now, you may or may not be aware, I know it seems to come up in the newspapers every time we suspend someone, and there's a lot of outrage about the fact they're being suspended with full pay. I have no authority under the legislation to do otherwise. They have to be suspended with pay at this point in time. The new legislation will, under certain circumstances, allow us to suspend without pay. and there will be a criteria laid out for that. I'm sure, and there's an appeal process on the part of the association, so whether or not it comes to pass will remain to be seen, but at least the authority will be there now. And there will be broader ability for police services and police services boards, as I said, to civilianize some positions. And for the first time, duties that can only be performed by sworn officers will be defined in regulation. So that will be the first time. We've heard about what is core policing. To an extent, that's been a bit of a red herring until now. We'll have to see what comes out in the regulations. As I said, the proof will be in the pudding with the regulations, but we'll see what that shows. But that is the most contentious piece with the associations across Ontario, the police associations, is the whole civilianization piece versus actually suspension of pay is not really as high on the radar, interestingly enough. I think we've always had the authority to civilianize, and we have done quite a bit of civilianization in our own organization. In fact, we have filled many specialized leadership positions, including IT, planning, human resources, corporate communications, finance, records management, fleet management, and 911 dispatch are all civilianized currently. Our front desks are civilianized. We have a number of civilianized positions. In fact, a third of our organization is civilian. So it's not a new concept to us. It'll be interesting to see with the regulation what we're allowed to do above and beyond what we've currently done. And civilianization, it's one of those things, and it's certainly a conversation I'll have with the board going forward. It isn't necessarily the panacea. You have to be very thoughtful about what you do with certain positions. For example, I'll talk about our special constables that are in the court services. Actually, for about the first 10 years, almost 10 years of when they're hired, we actually pay more for them than we do for a police constable. And then about the 10-year mark, we actually start to get about a 20% savings on wages. So it's about the flexibility of moving those resources around. It's about the capability. Before we civilianize, it's not just as simple as saying, well, we're going to civilianize this tomorrow and turn it over. We have to do the analysis on it. And that's one area where we've done the analysis. And it does limit our flexibility. And when you do give away, you know, and this is a lesson we learned from the Canadian military talking to them, is when you get rid of capability and ability to, you lose control, first of all, in some cases, even if you have a service level agreement with different organizations. And the Police Services Board will be responsible for ensuring adequate and effective policing, even if it's contracted. So there's a lot of consideration there going forward. But you also, when you stop your capability, you give it to somebody else, it's very difficult to ever get it back if you realize that you want it back. And that's what the Canadian military has realized. So I think there's some opportunity for sure with different things. It'll have to be a thoughtful process as we go forward, but I think there's a lot of good things in this legislation, but as we go forward, we'll have to see just how it plays out in regulation and how it actually works in practice. But there's certainly a lot of good things that Justice Tulloch has done in his review of the oversight agencies, and I look forward to seeing how those changes go forward. And subject to that, hopefully I've summed up both the grants and that 417-page piece of legislation as succinctly as I could, and I'm open to any questions that Your Worship or Council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Talk about losing control. You just lost some.
Well,
like I don't understand that piece of it at all. Is it not better for the chief to discipline than an outside person?
Well, I think there's we have a good blend when you have. I always think it's a good thing from an openness and transparency standpoint to have someone, or at least from the public standpoint, having someone look over the shoulder of the chief to make sure, because anyone's open to bias or perhaps not seeing the whole picture. So it's good to have these oversight agencies to look over our shoulder and make sure that we're doing the right things for the right reasons all the time. I am a little bit concerned, and I'll see how it works in practice. What it really does, what I see is, and I'm still going through that 417 pages in detail personally, But what I see is that it's really going to focus and perhaps some would suggest limit police chiefs to just really operational decisions. And as far as what's in the legislation now, as I alluded to, maintaining order and discipline within the ranks will be taken away from me, to some degree really taken away from the police services boards, and it'll be in the hands of the oversight agencies. This is what Justice Tulloch found in his review, is that that's what the public wants. They want that openness and transparency. I do feel that there should be some input, and I'll, as I said, I'll have to go through in detail and see what it actually looks like. But as it stands right now, it does look like, to a large extent, that will be taken out of the hands of the police chief and will be turned over to these outside agencies.
Another level of bureaucracy.
Well, we're probably, I remember looking at a paper written on this, and we're probably, and maybe rightfully so, because we can take away someone's liberty and we have the ability to use lethal force, is that we're probably one of the most scrutinized professions that there is in this province, in this country, even more so than the medical field. And I understand that, I'm open to that, and I'm happy with that. But I do agree there has to be a balance struck at some point.
Questions? Councillor Burton?
So, just a quick question on where they define discipline. If you've got an officer that, on the most mild level, isn't filling up his car before he returns it, that would still go to an outside agency?
It could, yes.
Wow.
I'll see how the regulation works out, but if there's what we call right now a chief's complaint, so there could be a public complaint, a complaint from a member of the public would come in, and right now we would screen it, we send it to the office of the independent review director, and then they make the decision on whether or not it's going ahead and who's going to investigate it, whether they retain it, whether they send it to someone else, or whether they send it back to us for investigation. In cases where one of my officers has a transgression and then perhaps they're charged with a criminal act, or there's some other allegation, I also have the right to file what's called a chief's complaint. So I can start an investigation, or I can start a complaint internally, with or without someone from the public doing that. That will be taken away from me. I will have to go through these independent independent agencies to do that, is my understanding of the legislation.
I have a couple just follow-up, just about overall Uxbridge policing, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Couple comments. We've had a lot of just petty crime in our subdivisions, and your team came up and they did it. They probably had 15 or 20 officers who came up and knocked on doors and explained to residents how to avoid these things happening to you. So they talked about cameras, they talked about, locking your cars, all those simple things that for some reason we forget in Uxbridge. We believe we're immune to those types of issues, but thank you very much for setting them up.
Thank
That
you.
was great.
And really the public message is, it's important from us, from deploying our resources, to make sure that people report it to us. I know some people, they get their car broken into, people take a little bit of change, or maybe they just mess things up, and they say, the police have better things to do than to deal with that. Actually, no, please tell us. Because we do want to know about those things, because if there's one person, there's probably more than one, and then that helps us to determine where we put our resources so that we can catch the people responsible for doing that. So I'm glad that you're happy with that, and we've had a lot of success with that type of program in other communities, including Uxbridge.
It was very well received, and then the other one is the extra traffic officer that you gave to us, or
Yes.
that you provided to us up here, is very well received. And one message to send back: speeding in our hamlets is a huge concern. I'm not as concerned about speeding in 80 zones as I am speeding in 60 and 50 zones. So.
Yes, and Inspector Kovacs, who I'm sure you've met on numerous occasions, I think that traffic is on his mind every day that he comes into the office. Hence the reason why we added a second traffic officer. It's the only really division that has that. Is because traffic is such an important issue in this community. Fortunately, you're not afflicted by some of the other things that some of our southern tier communities experience, but certainly traffic is the big issue, so we're trying to provide that, and I'll definitely pass that concern on to him.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councillor Hyatt?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Chief. Just to build on that point about visibility, I know, your inspector was in several years ago talking about community policing and all that, and what it entails. And we sort of talked about maybe doing, bike patrols in the summer or walking the main drag, that kind of stuff. Has there been any further discussion at the local level on those sorts of things?
Well, I'll definitely have a conversation with him. What we do is we have the police board has a 3-year business plan, which is the overarching plan that we try to reach, and then each of the divisions has an independent community patrol plan. Why? Because of the 5 areas or 5 divisions that we patrol, of the 8 communities, 8 municipalities are very, very different. So I know there is a lot of that within the community patrol plan for 15 Division. I'd have to have a conversation with Inspector Kovacs as far as what his plans are for the summer. It's one of those things. There are a lot of competing interests with respect to staffing and so on. So it's one of those things where we try to, especially when there's festivals, when there's certain things that are ongoing within the communities, we try to have a higher presence at those points in time.
Absolutely. And the point that Councillor Barton brought up, where they had that group that were there at the high school, basically, and then went in the neighborhoods close by and was canvassing, basically, and letting people know that we're there to help you guys, and here's some tips, that kind of thing. I think if you could do that more, either through the schools, I know the community officers there are excellent, maybe give them more funding if it has to go through the regional council. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But give them the tools to go out there and do more of that stuff, because I think people understand that the police are there to help, and they do respond, and they're fantastic. It's just that visibility piece, I think, is kind of lacking, and if there's something you could do internally to kind of, here's something that you guys can give out, or, while you're out on patrol, these are the kinds of things that you could do, would certainly enhance it.
Okay.
I have one other question. It doesn't relate to your presentation. It's what I'm hearing more and more about now is this telephone fraud.
Yes.
And we have a lot of seniors in our area, as you well know, and they're even attacking cell phone. I don't know where they're getting these numbers from, but some people I think are ashamed that they've fallen a dupe to these kinds of things. Does that handle all within DRPS, or do you go to RCMP with these kinds of complaints? How does that work?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because we had a very lengthy discussion with our Police Services Board about our fraud numbers and the fact how they were going up over the last several years. We're one of a few agencies that doesn't automatically tell people to report it to any fraud center.
Right.
We actually investigate them, so we'll take the reports and do it. So our numbers are perhaps, you're not necessarily comparing apples to apples when you compare us to one agency to the next.
Right.
So it is very important. Our message has been, whether we've done it through social media or through traditional media, to get the message out to the public, is please report it to us. It's no different than what I was suggesting with respect to vehicle break-ins, those types of things, or even if they're unlocked. Please tell us, because then we get a truer picture of what's happening in the reality out there. And we do recognize the fact that our senior community is more vulnerable, or most vulnerable when it comes to these types of scams. You get these grandchild scams and those types of things you've probably heard about, where they call up and say, they just, by chance, they keep using the same spiel, and then finally someone comes across somebody who actually has a grandchild that may be overseas, that type of thing, and they think they're in trouble or in jail or what have you. So we're trying to get the message out to people, and you probably saw just up in York region how someone was defrauded of a significant amount of money.
Right.
And it's one of those things of, if it sounds too good to be true, or if it sounds like there's something wrong with it, please get in touch with us, get in touch with the authorities, and we can investigate it for you. But
I think you said it's all about reporting, because that was a big story where I think the lady lost $10,000.
Yes. There's
people losing maybe hundreds here and
there.
Yes. And I think what's bothering me more is they've ramped it up from pretending to be a CRA rep to impersonating a police officer.
Yes.
Saying that, we're coming to your house to arrest you, unless you get this Bitcoin or gift card or whatever to us by X number of hours. So that, a lot of these people who have never dealt with, the big bad government freak out. And so it's almost a gut response that they go out and they buy these things and then they send them before even really thinking about it.
Well, I can guarantee you 100%. that no police service, no member of any
Absolutely.
police service
And
is
we know
ever gonna
that.
ask for bitcoins or for gift cards, and neither is the CRA.
Yeah,
So,
no, I hear you.
you know, these are public messages that we wanna get out,
But that could be part of the
and we're trying to do our
visibility thing
best
that we talked about,
through the
right?
senior centers and otherwise, but
Absolutely.
certainly we appreciate, the help of councils and
Yeah.
local
Well,
representatives
we'll do anything
to
that
help
we
spread
can
that.
to help you boost that, so.
Absolutely, thank you.
That's great, thank you.
No further questions? First of all, please pass on, I have on numerous occasions, that, Inspector Kovac has really served us very well, and the traffic officer, we love him. His name is Al Ouellette, and I'll tell you, God help you if you're traveling faster than you should, because you'll get a ticket. And he's doing an amazing job, and I think he's taught a lot of people that there's consequences to speeding. And you know, we're really happy that we have two here, because I think if you figured it out, probably there's more deaths in northern part of Durham through traffic accidents than there are to the south. You have a different set of issues to the south by far than what we do. But when it comes to people losing their life through speed or any number of things, seems to be happening more in the area where it's open and
Yes.
you know, that sort of thing. So we're really happy with the police services. It'll always be for me, as long as I'm sitting in this chair, it's 16 Division. I don't know where, no, 26th Division, and it's now 15 or something.
Yes.
But anyway, it's 26th Division, and we're very proud of it. And thank you for the support you give us.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you.
You want to picture him too? What's with you and men today?
You didn't take my picture.
Oh.
Feel free to airbrush. Go right ahead. Thank you very much.
She's a good photographer, so
Thank you very much.
thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen. Thank you.
Take care. No, thanks.
Do you want one for her? No. Okay, our next deputation is Kathy Weiss, Director of Economic Development and Tourism for Durham Region, and Kathy is going to do the review of the 2017 to 2021 Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan. So welcome, Kathy.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mayor O'Connor and Uxbridge Council. I'm very pleased to be here. We took to Regional Council in just right before the summer break, and it was accepted, and so now I'm out sharing this with yourselves and all the other councils in the region. So I'm going to go through this hopefully in a quick fashion, and so we're going to go just from how we started to how we ended up with into our action plans. So this strategy is one of many tools that's going to be used by Regional Council to provide their leadership in the implementation of economic development activities. And it's also going to be a very important operational and business planning tool for economic development and tourism staff. And we have articulated the actions and are committed to undertake in the work plan period 2017 to 2021. Although we're at the end of 2017, I am going to give you a quick update on where we have a couple of the activities that we're moving forward on. So the key components of the project is phase one was all the research and analysis, and we did hire a consultant to do this. Phase two is the community stakeholder and consultations. So we had interviews with key businesses and organizations, one-on-one meetings, and community roundtable forums in all of the area municipalities, and an online survey that was really taken up successfully. And then, of course, goal 3 was the actual strategy and action plan with goals, objectives, and actions. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to elabor on this. However, it is located in the strategy booklet that's handed out if you want to read it in further detail. So as we know, economic development is everybody's business, and successful implementation of this strategy and action plan requires collaboration across the entire region. Area municipalities, economic development staff across the region, staff from all regional departments, elected officials, community leaders, engaged partners, the ICI real estate and development industries, as well as local stakeholders. So Durham is extremely well positioned for future economic and job growth because of our strengths in areas that support emerging business opportunities. So we've traditionally been very strong in manufacturing, energy, and agriculture, and these will continue to be important sectors in our economy. We also have these emerging sectors that include innovative technology and health sciences, which is supported by our strong healthcare sector. So EN3, as defined by Stats Canada, energy will be expanded to include engineering and environment, which is also an area that we are very strong in. So during this strategy development, the consultants used MC, which is the web-based tool provided by the province that provides data on regional economies and workforces. And it was actually developed to help economic development professionals better understand their communities so we can make sound decisions on how to build strong regional economies. So that's where these numbers have come from. So the numbers of jobs in Durham region from 2010 to 2015 have increased by approximately 16,000, or roughly 7%. Historically known for our strengths in manufacturing, the recent job growth in Durham region has been associated with primarily from the service sectors. So from 2010 to 2015, while the number of jobs in manufacturing declined by 2%, and we know that's from the downsizing of General Motors, and farming has actually declined by 13%, which we can attribute to automation. Employment has increased over that same period by 21% in construction, 13% in finance and insurance, 11% in professional, scientific, engineering, and technical services, 11% in healthcare, and 7% in retail. So a notable concentration of jobs relative to the provincial average is evident in the region's utility sector, and of course that's because of our two major nuclear power generation plants. And agriculture sector is a vital component of our economy, contributing $273 million in Ontario's total farm production. Entrepreneurship and innovation is also an area that we are going to grow strong. So we've had in the region deep entrepreneurial roots, and we're home to globally recognized firms that have demonstrated technology leadership in very diverse fields of innovation. And today, a younger generation of technology-centered businesses are benefiting from links with local innovation support organizations, including Spark Center, UOIT, and Durham College. The town of Whitby, which you may or may not have heard, is creating an innovation hub and an incubator for startups in Durham region, and these efforts will have the effect of moving Whitby and Durham region toward a vision of becoming a high-tech innovation eastern gateway along the 401 corridor. And also, in addition, an MOU has recently been signed with the City of Oshawa, UOIT, and the Canadian Urban Institute to enable the creation of an urban innovation lab, as well as Oshawa being focused as a teaching city. And Pickering is considering a urban incubator makerspace in their new downtown revitalization. Partnership is key to economic development in any community, and so we are actively partnering with the Business Advisory Center Durham. As a matter of fact, the Durham region is a core funder in this. Of course, our partnerships across the region in economic development, the DEDP, the Durham Workforce Authority, extremely important organization in this region to provide us with the stats and data we need on our labor force. Spark Center, Toronto Global out of formerly the GTMA, UOIT, and Durham College, of course. So in 2012, Regional Council approved that the foreign direct investment strategy for the investment attraction team at Durham Region. So we have been looking in Brazil, Germany, China, and the United States. So just to give you a little brief synopsis of where these countries stand right now in terms of why we're there. So Brazil is expected to emerge from the worst recession that they've had in decades, and outbound investment to Canada continues to provide opportunities for Brazilian firms looking for a more safe and stable country. In China, it remains a strong global economic driver, while Asia's growth engine will remain for the foreseeable future. Outbound investment to Canada is forecasted to continue its growth trend as wealthy individuals and capital-rich firms in China look to further diversify their global presence and sophistication. Now, you may have heard that China has put the clamp down on bringing money into North America or any other country, but that is primarily for residential development. They're still allowing funds to flow for manufacturing and other industries. And of course, Germany, the economic in Europe is expected to continue, and the German economy continues to strengthen and bring the GDP to multiple highs every year. And the comprehensive economic and trade agreement between Canada and the European Union will be a significant driver of trade and investment for Canada. And of course, the United States, that's become a whole different animal, if I could say that word. So the new administration's ambitious target for job creation will be constrained by a tightening labor market and the fact that their immigration policies are restrictive. And also, another challenge we're facing in the United States, which we are going to consider whether we focus there or not, is outbound investment to Canada will be hampered by their new business tax, if it gets approved in the budget, to reduce it from 39% to 25%, and Canada's right now is 26% all in. So we used to have an advantage there, but we won't have that advantage anymore in attracting companies to from the U.S. And of course, excuse me. Thank you. Canada, so we're expected to have the second fastest growing economies among the G7, ahead of the European members and Japan. And the favorable and volatile exchange rate impacts the economy in three ways. So prospective new investors. The lower Canadian dollar can make Canada a competitive location. However, the increased volatility in the exchange rate makes new investors nervous. Existing foreign-owned firms, because they're already here and they have a presence, it allows them to have greater local knowledge and confidence that permits them to move forward in these volatile times. And of course, Canadian exporters, a lower Canadian dollar generates a cost advantages for manufacturers and exporters through raised profit margins. And the lower Canadian dollar, however, could mean higher production costs because most of our companies purchase their equipment from abroad. And of course, in Ontario, in 2015, for the first time in history, our population included more residents over 65 than children aged 0 to 14. And the population is expected to increase largely as a result of immigration. And business prosperity is increasing. However, it's dominated by the financial industry versus production, so there's work to do there. And then the major export market is expected to be a contributor to the Ontario economy, as I said just previously, with regards to Canada. Of course, Greater Toronto Area, their foundation for our foundation, because we're part of it, is business and financial services, manufacturing, retail, wholesale, trade, transportation, and agriculture. Growth in the GTA will be a significant contributor to the growth in Durham Region. The Greater Golden Horseshoe area is expected to outperform the national and Ontario economies, and our challenge is to capture our share of that economic growth. And of course, in Durham Region, there's changes and challenges over the next 5 years. This is driven by external forces beyond the control of Durham Region. And as an example of that would be the United States, political activity going on right now, and the transformative trends that will influence the region in many ways, which is innovation, if you think of it that way. Our diversity is repeatedly challenged to find an appropriate balance because we have a rapidly growing and evolving urban and suburban communities. So to speak quickly to the achievements and opportunities, I'm sure you're all very much aware, but in 2017, Durham had 3 of the top 100 infrastructure projects in the country, with Darlington being number 2 at about $13 billion, and the 407 development, the new ETR at about $1.2 billion, and the East Rail Maintenance Facility in Whitby at about $860 million. So aside from residential and commercial component of the Seton land development, the 800 acres of employment lands puts Durham in the game of investment attraction because there's minimal competition across the province for service employment lands along a 401 series highway. And of course, the proposed Pickering Airport will also have the potential to accommodate major aviation sector companies as well as many others. And it will be an opportunity to attract direct and indirect jobs. And of course, the decision by Metrolinx to put that $860 million East Rail Maintenance Facility ensures that the region plays a key role in GO Transit service and storage hub. So here are some of the challenges that we face. So within the Durham region, in our offices, we have the absence of fundamental base information and data. And and one of the activities that I'm going to share at the very end is how we're dealing with this. So we need better information about shovel-ready vacant land across the region. We all know that we don't have a whole lot. The need for a skills shed analysis, and also the need for a competitive study, which I'll talk to quickly afterwards. We have a low job to population ratio with every job to 3 residents, and lower job growth in comparison to the rest of the 905. We have a limited supply of rental accommodation, and especially in the north, limited public transit and the absence of reliable broadband. And then there's a perceived notion out there that we lack collaboration between the area municipalities. And I personally don't agree with that. Yes, there are sometimes that doesn't happen, but I think coming from the Waterloo region a few years back, I think we work extremely well together. So of course, the threats that we're looking at of the uncertainty of the U.S. Economic and foreign policies, we are excluded from some of the federal and provincial funding programs just by default. The Southwest Ontario Development Fund, Toronto, Greater Toronto Area, and Muskoka were the only ones left out of that funding opportunity. And then, of course, the Community Future Program, as you know, Township of Brock is the only one that qualifies for that as well. And of course, our road congestion and the broadband, and then we're working on this very hardly, but I don't know what it's based on past experiences, but the GTA realtor and development industry has a very lack of interest in Durham region. So we are working with them to change their mindset that we are the new Durham region, and we are just as prominent and innovative as the rest of the GTA. So the goals within the document that you have received are outlined in detail if you'd like to review at another time. And so so the 7 areas that we're looking at is enhancing our partnerships, promoting infrastructure readiness, capitalizing on our talent pool, supporting small business entrepreneurship and innovation, retaining, expanding existing business, attracting new investment, and marketing the region. So as you can see, we have, under the action items within the document, we have 37 new and 47 ongoing. So you may think that seems overwhelming, but it's very manageable for our team. And just to make you're well aware that the Vibrant North Plan is included in these action items. So quickly, just an update on some of the projects that we have been working on in 2017. As I said, it's becoming more and more obvious as we get continual inquiries for employment lands that there is, there's a discrepancy in the data that we have significant inventory. So the base data in the region's 2014 vacant land inventory states that we have 2,500 acres. Well, this number is accurate. However, it's up to 500 meters to the lot line. And what we want to know as economic developers is what land is investment ready. That means the property can be purchased, receive permits, build on it, and occupy it within 18 months. And service means property that has water and sewer. So what we did was we met with the regional planners and all the area municipality planners, and we came up with some criteria. And so, for example, so vacant land immediate for sale. So then we have vacant land for sale within 2 years. And then we have vacant land within these 2,500 acres that will never be for sale because the owner's sitting on it waiting to expand. Or there's vacant land, but it's not for sale because there's a site plan on it. So the bottom line is, as economic developers, we need the product that we can sell, that we're not saying, okay, yes, purchase this land, but then it's going to take us 18 months to decide whether we can get that service to the lot line or not. And so the plan is, I plan to bring a report to Regional Council in January, and the intent amongst all of us economic developers around the region is that this becomes a conversation on council floor, that perhaps maybe there could be a discussion about which lands perhaps we could get serviced, because we are turning away a lot of investors looking for land, employment lands over 20 acres. And then the business competitiveness assessment. The reason we're doing this is because of the negativity we're hearing from the Toronto developers and real estate agent that Durham region is not competitive. So this is currently underway. We've hired a consultant, and at the end of the day, we're going to really have a good handle on whether these comments or ideas are perceived or whether they're real. If they're real, we need to work on it. If it's perceived, we also need to work on it in terms of the communication, of bettering our communication. I'm almost done. In terms of our FDI update, in 2012, we started planting the seeds. We've been working really hard for the past 4 years in cultivating the leads. We now are starting to see the results. I'm very excited. And I can't let the cat out of the bag yet because I need to go to Regional Council first. And so I will be bringing a report in January 2018, to Regional Council to share the successes we've had in China primarily and other developments that have come through as part of our hard work and effort at the region. And of course, we cannot complete this without having monitoring and reporting, which we will be doing on a regular basis and reporting this back to Council. So, in conclusion, our strategy and action plan is just beginning. The real task lies in the implementation and realizing the results. And these actions remain on the, our actions will remain on the cusp of innovation, learning, and importantly, economic activity and regular updates to Council. And I would be more than happy to come to this Council with regular updates, whether it's annually, to keep you in the loop. Mayor O'Connor and Mr. Ballinger receives these updates, but I would be more than happy, if at your wish, to make it an annual activity that I come to see you. So, any questions?
Questions? Councillor Ballinger.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Kathy. Just a couple things. I was surprised, under the threats and challenges, not to see anything there about the cost of hydro. I've heard this so much from so many places that manufacturer won't come in once he hears how much it costs for hydro here. And I know one in Windsor where they were all set for a big business, it went right across the river. So can you tell me your take on that, please?
You are absolutely correct, and this was not intentionally not included, but Yes, you are absolutely correct. We are hearing it across the region from the major, companies that they sort of threaten that they're gonna leave Ontario. I'm not sure if that's the case, 'cause that's probably very expensive to do. But you're absolutely right. All the more to get that anaerobic digester in place so we can start getting some of that, energy to these large companies.
Second question, Your Honor. My second question would be, because you're in the business, how do our DC rates compare to other regions?
We are very competitive, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we're low compared to the rest of the GTA.
And the reason I ask that, I want the people to know that, because all the time I hear we can't do business in Durham region because the development charges are too high. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kathy. It's a
You're
pleasure to
welcome.
see you. My real job is in that sector that you described. I'm one of those GTA realtors.
Okay.
Why do you think that perception is out there? I know the DC rates, as you just mentioned, are comparable. What is preventing that investment in Durham region?
I think your industry is a very tight-knit family, and I think there's been a lot of negative experiences in Durham region in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, I'm talking even 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And so, and I know this for a fact because some of the realtors that I've talked to recently still considers us a blue-collar horse town, is what his words were. And so I've invited him here. They need to get a tour. We have come such a long way in terms of innovation and productivity and talented labor pool, and nobody's aware of this. So it's our job to get the communication out to yourselves.
I was just going to say maybe that's something that we need to reflect on, is what are we doing to change that or
Yes.
bring those people in?
Yes.
Because I know York and Peel spend millions of dollars just on promotion,
Correct.
just getting the message out there that we're the place to do business.
Yeah.
I think we say that, but we don't put our money where our mouth
Yeah.
is. Right?
So we've just finished our actual formal communications plan, and that is in there.
Okay, great.
So
Thank
we
you.
will be spending some money there.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you very much for coming in, Kathy. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. One question on our downtown. I don't know if you have much expertise on kind of rural towns, downtown cores, but with retail going more digital and Amazon taking a
Right.
huge chunk of that, what are your thoughts for traditional retail moving out and, software companies and engineering firms moving into those spaces? What are
Well-
the threats to that?
Well, I actually come from the city of Kitchener. Back in the day when that evolution just first started, I was a part of the underground of that. So I am a firm believer in changing the face of downtowns to become industry focused as well. I'm kind of on the fence in terms of online shopping. Yes, it is going to start to impact the large big box stores and those type of things, but the downtowns in all communities are known for those boutiques and that special shopping that there's still a market for. So I think there's still a market for that, but I'm also a firm supporter of changing the faces of downtown to include that.
Is there anything from your perspective that we should be aware of or we should learn from the lessons of Kitchener?
Well, they put $110 million into revitalizing their downtown.
We don't have 100.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
One major issue here that we have to work with planning department as well as yourselves, and that is we have no expansion availability to us for industrial zoned lands. And that's a huge issue for us that we are going to need the region's support in getting it through the regional official plan and allowing more industry to come to our municipality. And if we can get more serviced industry, that would be a benefit. Right now it's only partially serviced, as you well know, but we need that help. and getting that into, play as soon as possible.
And I know our commissioner supports that 100%,
Right,
as well as myself.
yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Clayton Rudy, transportation engineer with Stantec regarding traffic issues. And I think we had a number of questions that, we needed some help in answering, and we welcome you, Clayton.
So Clayton is just gonna run through blanket speed limits, blanket banning of truck traffic, cycling facilities, and yield signs. And he's just gonna be about 10 minutes or so doing that, and then if you're gonna ask questions at the end. that'd be
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Based on discussions I've had with Mr. Kester, I'm going to go through a few points for your consideration that maybe will help make some decisions. In terms of blanket speed limit reductions, there certainly has been a movement to reduce speeds, especially in urban areas, and that's certainly something that's a feasible option. It would take some signs may have to be added, others relocated. So there would be some cost to it, but it wouldn't be a sign on every single block. You can do some signs at certain key points and entrances to the town and to urban areas. But in rural areas, these roads have been purposefully designed for high speed, and it wouldn't be feasible to reduce something like an 80-kilometer-an-hour road in a rural context down to 40 kilometers an hour, because drivers would not inherently obey that. They wouldn't feel that that's the appropriate speed to operate at, and you would have a tough time enforcing that. So I think it's blanket speed reductions in urban areas certainly feasible. It would require a little bit of study to figure out how to implement, but certainly there's some safety benefits. But it would reduce mobility throughout the region if it were on rural roads as well. Truck traffic on township roads. It sounds like there's actually a lot of good things going on in terms of managing truck traffic, like an asset management plan, spring weight restrictions, regular maintenance operations. So in terms of infrastructure, it seems like the townships is on the right track for that. One thing is that even if trucks are banned on a certain road, they're still allowed to access any delivery areas or origins. So trucks are still large, aggregate hauling trucks. They're still allowed to access the destinations that they're going to or the origins they're coming from. And I understand that a lot of the truck traffic happens on regional roads. So it may be something that the township wants to discuss in further detail on how to manage truck traffic on certain specific roads in conjunction with the region. And I believe there's already a good relationship with commercial vehicle inspectors and other individuals at the region. So I think that's if a lot of this truck traffic's on regional roads, I think it's the region that would need to that you need to discuss this in a bit more detail with. Cycling facilities. I'm a cyclist myself, and I enjoy cycling, and I understand, and I've seen a lot of road cyclists out in going for long rides in rural areas. From an engineering perspective, there is a liability that's assumed if you sign a road as a cycling facility. There's certain engineering that needs to be done, some studies to plan it, to implement it well, to maintain it. because you have vulnerable road users alongside very fast-moving rural traffic in rural areas. So in terms of designated cycling facilities on township roads, it would need some engineering studies to justify it and to implement it and to properly address the requirements of having a signed cycling facility. The opportunity here is that you could, or one way forward is to discuss with the region on more informational signs or welcome signs, like welcome to the township or welcome to the town, like please be aware of our pedestrians and cyclists. So there are certain signs that you can add to that effect, but in terms of specifically designating a road, that would require a certain amount of engineering study to properly implement. And of course, if it's a regional road, the region would have jurisdiction on what to sign on that road. And the last topic before we get to questions is yield signs. And I understand there's some desire to change stop signs to yield signs. So there's a few different intersections. So you can have a four-way stop, or a two-way stop. So if you're changing a four-way stop to have two yield signs, that is not recommended, because if you have a yield, you can't tell a driver to yield to a road that's stop controlled. It's not quite logical to do that. So you can replace a four-way stop with just a two-way stop, so that one road remains free flow and the other one has the two stop signs. You can also have a two-way stop controlled intersection with and replace those with yield signs. So there, and I understand there's some good reasons, to reduce the amount of stopping, acceleration, idling. So I think there are opportunities. We just have to select the best candidate locations and ensure that they're appropriate. And it would probably take a little bit of effort just to go out and see which intersections are the most suitable, and also ensure that sight lines are met, because if there's only a yield requirement rather than a stop, that means vehicles might be traveling faster, which requires better sight lines at intersections. So there's some minor things to check when replacing a stop sign with a yield sign, and it needs it can't be done blanket everywhere, but certainly there should be some good opportunities in the town to do so. And I think that that kind of sums up some of the background understanding I have of these transportation issues, and I'd like to field any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you very much, Clayton, for coming in. I believe we were told recently with a deputation that Brock Township had a 40-kilometer signage for the urban area, and that isn't the case at all. I think Ben has looked into that, so it can be done, as we're hearing, but it hasn't been done anywhere yet in Durham. I think the truck traffic issue, and it is an issue, is probably on local roads, is the fact that when you have a business that brings in 500, 600, 700 truckloads of material, and there's nothing that we can do, except at least we feel there's nothing we can do. And maybe you're the person that can tell us, could we as part of their operation, say if there's any damage to that road through the haulage of this material, that they are going to be responsible for it, or is even that a fair request?
That's not so much of an engineering question. That usually,
That's a nice political answer.
Yeah,
And
well, I
I'll
would,
accept it.
yeah, well, I'd imagine there could be some prearranged agreement,
Yeah.
um,
And I think
but-
that's what centered around this issue, was that there is a company that is, that this year has brought in a lot of material to their property.
Mhm.
And, it's the noise, it's everything that goes with trucking, okay?
Yeah,
So
I
maybe that's
understand. Dust
something we'll
and-
have to ask legal versus engineering.
It sounds like there's already an asset management plan, there's maintenance programs, and especially like the spring weight restrictions, you know,
Yeah.
those are key to saving infrastructure over the long term. So,
Okay.
from an engineering perspective.
I spoke to, Dave Barton, our counselor, about this last week, and, you know, Uxbridge is an amazing place to cycle. It has everything a cyclist would want here, whether you're on trails or whether you're on roads or whatever.
Mhm.
But something that I can't get over is the fact that there are so many cyclists that do not stop at stop signs, don't think traffic signs, that they should have to obey. And the example I told Dave the other day was I was coming down Reach Road. There was a car in front of me. It's a four-way stop, and 18 cyclists went flying through that stop sign. And if the woman in front of me didn't have control of her vehicle, I'll tell you, it would have been disastrous, because she was partway through that intersection when they went flying by her car. And I don't know how you tell cyclists, stop means stop, and if you're on the road, you have to stop. You
Yeah,
have to
there's-
signal. That if you're going to turn, you have to signal. And,
Mhm.
you know, it drives me nuts, because somebody behind the wheel of a car one day is going to hit some of these people, and it's going to have a lasting effect on them through no fault of their own, that they've either injured somebody or, God forbid, that they've killed somebody. And for the life of me, and Dave actually saw them go through the same, they went through a stop sign on the 7th. No, I saw them on the 7th, you saw them on the 6th, you said. So, you know what, I don't know. Do you have any?
Yeah, so, I've been involved in a few strategic road safety plans, and there are engineering things you can do, but there are also education and enforcement and encouragement opportunities that go hand in hand alongside the engineering. So, you know, in terms of an intersection, you know, putting a stop sign there is perfectly reasonable, like, you know, in a general sense.
But how do you get cyclists to stop?
That's probably where the education and enforcement comes in.
Well, they shouldn't be on a bike if they don't know the traffic rules, in my humble opinion.
Well, yeah, and there are obligations of all road users, whether they're in a motor vehicle or a cyclist.
You're
And
right.
that's totally, you know, a cyclist has the same legal obligation to stop as a motor vehicle. I understand that there are, you know, platoons of long distance road cyclists that, you know, just like any road user is, you know, sometimes disobeys the rules of the road. So that's something that's certainly, you know, in terms of an engineering strategy, it could be looked, you know, there are things there. You can do a road cycling study or cycling strategy. You can do strategic road safety plans. There are certain studies, but it sounds like the concern is a little bit less on the engineering side and more on education, enforcement, or encouragement.
Yeah, and you know what, I'm very concerned, because it's going to be a matter of time before somebody gets killed here. You know, you try and do your best, but I honestly believe that people on bicycles, as in cars, because cars, stop doesn't mean anything to a lot of motorists anymore either at stop signs. They roll through them, or if they do a quick glance and they're through them as well. So it's a disaster waiting to happen, and as I said, if you're a cyclist and you're up against a car, your chances aren't very good.
Correct.
So I really worry about that. And I just have one other comment, is the yield versus stop. I think we do have some cases that we could look at here in Uxbridge, and I certainly think that when you go through our subdivisions, even though it's written in a subdivision agreement that stop signs will be at these locations, I know there's one subdivision near me where it makes no sense. You go 6 houses and then there's another stop sign. And stop signs aren't supposed to control traffic. That's not why they're in there. So I think there's some things that we could certainly do to eliminate some of the green grass that we're contributing to. So, Councillor Hyatt. Sorry, I was looking at him and thinking about you.
Well, you can wait your turn, Councillor Hyatt, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Bryant, sorry.
It's okay, we get mixed up all the time. Thank you for coming, first off. I just kind of had a comment. I think there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, and I think in one of these sorts of sessions we have a lot more questions. So maybe we might want to think about having a council education session where we can come in and get all our questions ready so we're not confined by the 15 minutes. I'm sure Councillor Barton has a lot of questions because he's the cycling guy. But I think that's maybe something we might want to explore in January. Certainly we can look at that, but I would think that's something that might be good for us to, because it's very hard to condense these questions into 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Some of the things you're saying about yield sign versus... So this is something I think if we can look at it and maybe come back with questions, so I just thought I would throw that out there as a thought.
Could I suggest along the lines of what you're talking about, Councillor, is that maybe what we need to look at is having an engineer come in and look at our urban area and our rural areas, especially around hamlets, and give us some concrete suggestions about where we need to add something and where we can easily delete some signage.
Yeah, I think if we could set that up. Oh, sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Is that for safety reasons or for for mobility or just everything?
For everything.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, maybe if we could look at that and then certainly have a council education session.
Yeah.
I think that would be good rather than this tight timeline. But I appreciate you coming in certainly and giving us
You're
all the
welcome.
information. Thank you.
Councillor Barton, and then, did you have something?
Okay, Clayton, thanks a lot for coming in.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. So, one thing that I was looking at before you got here was York Region have designated some roads as year-round weight restrictions.
Okay.
So the roads that they don't want heavy truck traffic on, they're concession roads, they've done that. So it is, if you look at Markham, it's like 16th Avenue, York-Durham line. There's just different areas where they're trying to keep trucks off of. Is that more effective than no trucks?
That's it. How has the how's the been like enforcement and inspection been for commercial vehicles? Is it are you getting good compliance like from, because if trucks are complying with the with weight restrictions and whatnot, that might be something to look into.
Okay.
It depends on where trucks are going to and coming from. If they have a destination, even if there's a ban, they can even if you ban them on that road, they're still allowed to go down that road if that's where their destination is.
Right.
So but a weight restriction might be more could be more enforceable. That being said, it might be a conversation for legal if you have an established operation and then all of a sudden reduce their capacity.
Yeah, that would be, we'd get ourselves in trouble with that for sure.
Yeah, but no, that's a good point. There are certain you can have different facilities of different levels.
Okay.
Yeah, but I understand like most of the truck traffic is on regional roads, correct?
The majority, but what we're seeing and what I think brought up this entire conversation is there was a fill operation in Pickering, and they were getting their fill from Georgina, and they're running through the fourth concession of Uxbridge to do it. Which, just they went, a straight line from point to point. So when you start getting heavy truck traffic on one of our concession roads, it's out of the ordinary for our residents, and it's also, a lot of wear and tear on our roads with no economic benefit for us. So it's one thing to support one of our businesses, it's another thing to become a through route. So anyway, that's where we're at. We're not gonna solve this one today. Just, it's a bigger picture that we need more help with. Quick question, share the road signs. Is that considered cycling facilities?
No, I believe you can put, maybe I'll get back just to confirm, because each sign, like, the signs in the Ontario Traffic Manual, they do have an implementation guide to them. But share the road is more of a general type of sign, and that's in the Ontario Traffic Manual, I believe. So yeah, those are more the smaller traffic type signs that you find. So that might be something. But I would probably want to look at the wording to see, if it kind of implies that if you're putting a share the road sign, is that implying that there are cyclists down there? And as long as it's not it certainly would not be a designated cycling route, which would have more liability or, more requirements engineering wise with it. But a share the road, especially on, and it would be different in a rural versus an urban setting. In an urban setting, it's kind of more expected that people are walking and cycling all around. And where you do have in an urban, a hamlet or a town setting, that's certainly easy to implement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And one, just self-driving cars are getting close. Should we be they're basically here. Should we be changing what we're doing? Is anyone looking at
That's actually a great question, and I would say no.
We shouldn't do anything?
From the level of the township. A lot of these, like the vehicles, are going to be subject to federal regulations. So the federal government will be taking care of the physical vehicle. The province will be taking care of allowing them within the Highway Traffic Act, or whatever at a provincial level, whether or not they're allowed. Below that, there are opportunities to kind of partner or express your either desire or to either welcome them or push them off a little bit until it's more proven. But in terms of it's going to be a long time before you can actually design a road without considering a human driver or so even if we have 90% autonomous vehicles in 20 years, well, there's still going to be 10% human drivers until you can legislate those human drivers away and ban human driving. That means your regular engineering and design processes and maintenance, design, you're still going to have to design around human drivers. The only thing that might be most likely to change is your traffic forecasting, like the amount of, where vehicles go and the amount of vehicles. And so there's maybe some, is personal car traffic going to grow as much as might be expected? Maybe not if there are certain, if they really catch on quickly. So that's maybe the one area. So if you're thinking of, in 40 years we're going to have to widen this 4-lane road to 6 lanes, well, maybe not. But beyond that, we'll still need the same lane widths, generally the same type of infrastructure, from what I've been able to gather.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. We could spend hours talking about these different topics. I just have a few questions. So from what you're saying, for us to reduce the speed limit in the urban area, all we would need to do is post signs at the entrances to the urban area? Is that what I'm hearing?
The entrances would be key. Certain other areas where it might have been previously 50 and you wanted to lower it to 40.
So would the signs be sporadic, or is there some legislation saying that you have to have them certain distances?
No, there's no legislation about where to put them, but it might benefit if you're doing it as within an urban, an entire urban area,
Right.
like in the town here. It might be beneficial to do a small study to see, you know, exactly where you'd need them, because you don't need them everywhere, but you would need signs in certain places. And that would probably, it wouldn't just be a sign change, there'd probably be a bit of an education
Yeah,
effort as
but-
well. Paper, you know, the local paper
But
and
from a signage perspective, we'd only need them on those areas that you're entering. Is that what
The-
I'm hearing?
you wouldn't need them everywhere. You would need them at certain key points,
Certain
including at the town boundaries and then certain other areas
Like
within
the
it.
province has had this push on now to reduce it from 50 to 40 anyway.
Mm.
So do you know anything about that, or is that still waiting to see kind of thing?
Yeah, that's,
Like, we wouldn't have to do it then, obviously, if it was being reduced provincially, correct? Or would we?
that,
I'm asking you, I'm not a traffic engineer.
no, that's a good question. Even if they do change it in the Highway Traffic Act to be the default as 40 rather than the unsigned default is 50,
Right.
are people gonna understand that
We'd
it's
still
now
have to
40
sign it
and not
anyway,
50?
You're saying, yeah, okay.
And yes, there might be a little bit of provincial education accompanying that change, but
Okay.
it does take some effort on the ground locally to
Okay.
if you do want to change the way the drivers are operating on the roads.
Okay. From an engineering perspective, can you define stop sign for me? Like, what is it? What's it designed to do? Well, I mean, I grew up in the age, and probably before your time, of Elmer the safety elephant. When he held up the stop sign, it means stop. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean slow down, or maybe slow down, or roll
Correct.
through. It means stop.
That the Highway Traffic Act still says, you know, stop sign means you're legally required to stop, to come to a complete stop. So the law hasn't changed, but
Okay.
the motorists have sometimes become conditioned when they repeatedly roll through stop signs and there's no enforcement. That
So it doesn't mean slow down if you choose to. It means stop, correct?
correct. The
Okay.
legal requirement has not changed.
So is it used to control traffic in a again, this is all from an engineering perspective.
Mhm,
Is
yeah, I
it used to
understand.
control traffic? In other words, you're supposed to come to this intersection, stop, look both ways, and then proceed with caution. That's what it's designed to do, correct? Along those lines?
Yeah, there are, you know, in terms of application, it's
Okay.
generally you are trying to control the traffic at the intersection, and sometimes there's a safety. There may be a safety reason to it.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just a traffic operations
Are they
reason.
designed to slow traffic? In other words, you've got to come to this stop, so technically you're coming from whatever speed you're at to a stop.
Sometimes they are
and then-
implemented to slow traffic. So a stop sign can have a few different functions, and it really depends on the context.
Okay.
And it might be, there might be a certain, if you have a corridor of stop signs, you know, it might be intended to slow the whole street down so that drivers use the next street over.
Okay.
So sometimes there's some traffic demand management,
So they are
objectives.
designed basically to control traffic of one form or another. Whether you're coming to a dead stop or not, if you choose not to. It's
basically,
designed
yeah.
to basically control traffic on that stretch of roadway, right? Okay. Because the reverse or the corollary of that is, as the mayor has already pointed out, there are subdivisions where there are 4 ways on every corner.
Mhm.
Now, if you live there and there's no reason, really, to have them, and again, I'm looking at it from an engineering perspective, why would they be on every corner, and yet there's other sections of town where there's no stop signs at all, or we're getting a push on from certain people to have yield signs in lieu of these stop signs. So if A, they're designed to control traffic, why is there an abundance in some areas and not in others? And maybe you can't speak to that because you weren't part of the design process, but
Yeah, sometimes
potentially would there be more in one area?
Sometimes policies evolve over time. Sometimes it's based on how the subdivision's designed or certain
they were
objectives in that
Okay.
certain features of the road or the type of traffic that this area is supposed to carry and versus the other.
I'm not trying to put out here, I'm just looking at it from an engineering definition as to why they're there.
Yeah,
Maybe there's more to it, and
the-
maybe from Councillor Bryan's perspective, maybe we need to delve into this on a bigger meeting. One other question I had was, are you familiar with the OMCC funding for cycling plans? And
no, I'm not.
you're not? Okay, maybe I can't ask you that one. Anyway, it was basically, they would fund us money to put in cycling lanes and or a cycling plan. The
Mhm.
problem being the limitation was reserved basically to commuter cycling.
Oh,
which-
okay.
Which, from my perspective, would be more from an urban area like downtown Toronto, where you have cycling lanes dedicated directly to people who are using it to commute to work. Up here, we tend to have more recreational cycling, where we've talked about these 18 people blowing through a stop
Mhm.
sign, and I hope you weren't one of them, Dave. Anyway, so to me, to get to that funding was a bit of an issue, because A, we haven't determined how much commuter cycling we have, which would be defined by this plan, and B, most of our rural roads are for recreational cyclists. So if you don't know about it, maybe I'll save that for another day. But
I'm trying to think, there might be some within the town boundary, there might be some
in the urban area, I can understand it, because
so some kind of local commuting, you could say, not
Yeah,
necessarily
okay.
long distance
so we
commuting.
have to define it basically to the urban.
Although there's one guy in my company's Markham office, and he's in Aurora, and he bikes down 2 or
Yeah.
3 days a week,
Right.
From Aurora to Markham.
Okay.
Like, you do.
So there'd be certain determined routes that you would qualify under commuter cycling or
Well,
whatever it is.
but that would probably be mostly regional roads for
Regional
long
roads.
distance commuting.
Okay. I'm sure,
but-
again, we could talk about this for hours, but
Yeah.
thank you for your information.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sorry. First of all, Clayton, thank you very much for coming in and explaining some of the situations. I'm going to suggest to council that this become part of the 2018 budget, that we have an engineer come in and look at these roads, because what's happening is, we've talked about this for 4 years. We've had deputants come in and they want stop signs put in. We've had others come in and they want stop signs taken out. And we've also heard from the environmental group that perhaps there are too many stop signs in some locations, and what that gas is doing to us all. So I would suggest that what we do is we put this in the budget and deal with this next year, 2018, and get it off our plate. And I think we've heard some great suggestions from Clayton today, and what we need to do is just expand on those, hear what he has to say, or whoever's going to do the report come back to us, and let's get this one finished. Okay? So, pardon me? We'll refer it to budget for an engineer to do a report on the urban and hamlet areas of our municipality regarding traffic issues.
I'll make that
So-
motion, Mayor O'Connor.
Pardon me?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, regarding speed limits, truck traffic, cycling signage, et cetera. Okay? Everybody,
Yeah.
did you have a question?
Well, just maybe an add-on. I think we all, if we could switch the speed limit to 40
Yeah.
in our town, we'd all be happy to do that. Why don't we include in that motion that we look at the specific criteria required to make.
Okay, so let's just say, and look at lowering the speed limit in the urban area. And then whoever's doing the report will be able to come back and tell us we're justified in doing that, or the reasons why we shouldn't be doing that, okay? Are you all right with that, adding that? Okay, great, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. So, Ben will be back to you, or he'll be back to somebody,
Yeah.
in the future, because we really need to get this off our plate.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to help, and thanks for having me, and some good questions. So it's nice to have a active interest in these types of things. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Well, we have Bob Horner here from our Alliance, requesting funding assistance for the construction of a multi-use pavilion at the Eudora Community Hall. The letter is before you on page 48 of your agenda. Welcome, Bob, and just before you start, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for all the good works that you're doing in our community. Lions are a great organization, community organization.
Thank you very much. It's our privilege to serve our communities. So good morning, Madam Mayor and councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Bob Horner, and I reside at 12590 Lake Ridge Road, Sunderland. I'm a member of Eudora-Leasdale Lions Club and have served terms as club president and more recently as club secretary. We have a very small delegation, just Lion Larry with me today. The reason for our attendance is to present our plans for a multi-use pavilion at the Eudora Hall and request your financial assistance. As the Mayor has mentioned, our written presentation is on pages 48 through 53 of your expanded agenda, but specifically I'll be reading pages 50 to 52. First off, who we are. We're a community service group, part of the Lions Clubs International, a global leader in community and humanitarian service with more than 1.4 members in 46,000 clubs in over 200 countries. For more than 35 years, the club has served the residents of Eudora and Leasdale by providing social and financial assistance to individuals and groups alike. Some of the community events we have organized and sponsored are scouting, T-ball for children, Family Fun Day, Breakfast with Santa, Halloween in the Park, and public skating rinks, many of which have taken place at either Eudora Hall or Leasdale Park. The club holds dinner meetings twice a month, in Eudora at the Eudora Hall and in Leasdale at the Historic Church. With respect to the Leasdale Historic Church, the club has recently contributed to the purchase of new stained glass windows and built shelving in their storage shed. The club was a major partner in the redevelopment of the Eudora Hall through proactive fundraising and the donation of hundreds of volunteer man-hours. After the reopening in 1994, the club contributed to the continued improvement of the hall through the purchase of a new sound system, repainting the small hall, and contributing to the cost of the roadside signage. The towns of Uxbridge and Georgina each contributed $50,000 to the project. Currently, the hall and the surrounding area, including the ball diamond and children's playground, is underutilized. Will make the park more attractive to the community, thereby increasing usage. It may also make the hall more attractive as a wedding venue. The Hall Board, Play School, and Seniors Club have expressed their support of our initiative. We see the pavilion being used primarily during non-winter months by local families, Play School, and special interest groups as a destination for picnics, a backdrop for wedding pictures, venue for musical presentations, and a venue for community events such as a Family Fun Day. The club is proposing construction of a square aluminum pavilion, approximately 20 feet by 20 feet, situated on a poured concrete base. The design of the structure will be compatible with the design of the hall, wheelchair accessible and complete with appropriate grading and drainage. The decision on the final design would rest with the town of Georgina as owner. It's proposed that construction commence in spring of 2018 with a minimum disruption of hall functions. Upon completion, the pavilion will be owned and operated by the town of Georgina. We've included a likeness of the proposed shelter in our package. While the photos provided by a U.S. company, it is our intention to purchase locally if we can arrange a suitable supplier. And as recently as yesterday, we made contact with a friend who is involved in the construction business and may be able to help us with that. The club estimates the cost of materials, construction, drainage, and grading to be approximately $50,000. Seed money in the amount of $10,000 has already been set aside by the club. It is anticipated the balance of $40,000 will be made up by government grants, fundraising, and personal donations. Following our presentation on September 27th, 2017, the town of Georgina has given approval of town staff to work with us on construction issues. or request for funding in the amount of 20% of cost as be sent to their budget for review. At this time, Eudora Leasdale Lions Club is petitioning the Township of Uxbridge for financial support in the amount of 20% of costs. This report is respectfully submitted by the executive of Eudora Leasdale Lions Club. And I'd be happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Bob, for coming in and going through this. I believe what you're looking for the Township of Uxbridge is $8,000 then?
It would be 20% of 50,000, so it would be $10,000.
Okay. Oh, I deducted the 10,000 that you have already.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're looking at as part of the 50,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's, all right. So you're looking at 10,000.
20% of the estimated cost of the hall is what we're looking at.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, so that's $10,000.
Yes, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Certainly it's a hall that's being used, and it's the only hall that both municipalities, or hamlets, sorry, use, and it's certainly an asset for Leasdale and Eudora. So, can I suggest that the motion should be that we put this to the 2018 budget? Okay, Councillor? No, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so you can tell politics here, but certainly, it is your ward, and so we'll accept a motion by Councillor Barton that $10,000 be part of the 2018 budget for the pavilion at the Eudora Leasdale Hall. Pardon me? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, all those in favor? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It is now 12 o'clock, and we do have some timing issues here that we have to, on your in camera, we have a lawyer coming in at 1:30. We have another lawyer coming in at 1:30. So I think what we'll do is we'll just motor through this. I have asked staff to order pizzas for us, so when they come, we'll just break for 10 minutes and then keep going. Can you have a 5-minute recess? Certainly, we'll have a 5-minute recess. I wouldn't want to keep you here. Yeah.
I'm just trying to have a bigger feature on Giving Tuesday, and I know you guys declared it Giving Tuesday but no one really spoke to it. So I was just wondering if you could just sort of give me a little blurb about kind of why you thought it was a nice idea to have it be official in Uxbridge.
Well, I think it's good. Oops. Okay,
No, we don't have anyone from work.
oh. Well, we'll get ourselves organized here in a minute. Great Santa Claus parade, I hear. We don't get to see it when you're in it, but I hear it was very good, the parade. Yeah, the gentleman I just spoke to, said that, this is the first one his grandkids have been at. He said they were just amazed, so. Okay, yeah, does anybody have any announcements that they want to make? I think, Jack, you wanted to make one.
Thank you, Worship. Just want to say, first off, it was a great parade. Second thing is, I talked with Harry Stamp yesterday. Harry's a longtime friend, not only with myself, but with the total community. I'd heard rumors about what was wrong with him, where he was, so I thought I'd go right to the source. And Harry right now is in Ridgetown. He's in a facility like Butternut right now, and his daughter-in-law, Tammy, has taken him to medical appointments. He was on a cruise, and he kind of fainted on the deck, and the next thing that happened was at Maui, they couldn't get in close enough to get him to a hospital, so they sent out a boat and picked him up and took him and across Maui in an ambulance, and long and short of it, he was in the hospital for 10 days. He'd lost a lot of blood. So then he, after 10 days, he flew to Toronto, and then his son and daughter-in-law picked him up, and they live in London, and they've set up medical appointments for him in London. I am going to see him tomorrow to take down some personal things. When I talked to him, he said, "You know, Jack, I don't even remember getting on the ship." He said, "I'm having a memory lapse right now," and he said, "I've got a..." Oh, that's where he is. He's in Ridgetown, and he's fine, and he's got different medical appointments set up. So thank you, Your Worship.
Just to mention, well, I imagine Gord might be mentioning it, but I'm going to beat him to it. The BIA AGM tomorrow night here in the chamber, 7 o'clock. I think most of council hopefully will be out to hear what's going on and etc. Saturday, December the 2nd is the Goodwood Hall Pancake Breakfast with Santa. 5th, the Community Christmas Concert at Lucy Maud Montgomery Society. It's being held at the historic Leasdale Church. Please come out and support it. I think it'll be a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you.
We just, was it Saturday, December the 2nd for the pancake breakfast? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Barton?
Yeah, I just have a quick one. It's an update on a cyclist that was hit by a motorcycle in our community about 8 weeks ago. So his name's Jeff Lee. He's a firefighter in York. He lives in Mason Homes, but he spent about 4 weeks in at St. Mike's. He broke neck, pelvis, bunch of pretty bad shape. Then 3 weeks in Markham. I saw him a couple times there, and then luckily he's in Uxbridge now. He's waiting for a bed in a rehab hospital. So he hopes to be walking in less than a month.
Wow.
2 little kids. His youngest is in my daughter's class. So, but just to let you guys kind of know what a member of our community is up to after a pretty bad accident.
Yeah. Do you have anything, Gord?
No, I'm
Fred, oh, jeez. You know, after 4 years. Yeah, right.
Good looking man.
Okay, so moving along, who's Deputy Finance? Gord? Okay, please.
Call to order Finance and Emergency Services Committee. Correspondence 190 from AMO regarding the legislated fire medic approach. Can I get a motion to receive this?
Oh,
What do you wanna,
I think we should be writing in support of
Support?
AMO's position.
okay.
Thriving
Okay.
for the business of
Thank
the
you.
township, including myself and the
Okay.
CAO and
Really. And one more town line, it says CIBC Visa, $3,790. Whose name is on the card and who's in control of it, please?
Debbie, I'll refer to you again.
yeah,
It's
I
just under
don't
town, that's all.
work in the Treasury Department, but there is one credit card that we use administratively in Town Hall, and the treasurer's name is on that card. It is kept here, it doesn't leave, but other than that, that's, you
Like-
have to speak with Donna.
It's in Donna's name? Okay, and is there a...
It's in the township's name, and then there's a reference name
Okay.
on it.
Is there a maximum line value where you can use this card?
So your best bet, Brock, would be to see if you can set up a time just to talk to Donna, and
Okay.
Donna will be able, she's not here this morning because
Okay.
she's desperately trying to get the budget done.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else in the public have any questions? There being none, I will pass it to Councillor Beach for tourism.
Thank you. I'd like to open Tourism, Heritage, and Community Program Committee, report to committee. RC 2517 of Don Cook, Trail Coordinator, and volunteers and events on the trail 2017. Absolutely amazing, amazing hours that these volunteers have given to the trails. It just wowed me. Any comments, questions? Yes, Mayor O'Connor?
I think we need to receive it for information, but certainly many thanks goes out to all those volunteers for who have donated so much of their time and their efforts to making sure that our trails are in good shape.
Agreed. Councillor Barton?
Yeah, again, going in that direction, but also there's a ton of work that's done by the DMBA that's not accounted for in this report on the Durham Forest and Dagmar and Walker Woods Trail. So the amount of effort that this organization and these volunteers do is just incredible. We could never have our trail system without them.
Absolutely. Anyone else? So, Mayor O'Connor,
I think that what we need to do is just receive it for information, and the Durham Biking Association as well. Anybody who has done any work on the trails, we need to say a huge thank you.
Yeah,
because the trails wouldn't be in the condition they're in without their support.
yeah, the Horsemen's Association, everyone. It's just incredible what they've been able to do. Councillor Barton?
And just with Steve in the room, Steve
Yes.
Snodden, you spend at least an hour a day working on our trails, I think. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. No, just incredible. All in favor of receiving for information? Okay, carried. Report RC 2617, Amanda Ferrero, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture and Tourism, recost of trails. Councillor Hyatt?
Yeah, I think this just reinforces, if we had to put a dollar amount to what this actually comes down to, and again, we probably could not do this work without the volunteers. And I hope it's trails and not trials, since that's what your agenda speaks to. That's a totally
Trials.
different topic, but I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, and Councillor Ballinger?
Just a comment, and comment is, I sit on the Durham Regional Trails Coordinating Committee, and when I hear how much money they spend on trails, and the few volunteers they have compared to Uxbridge, this is money well spent.
Thank you. Any other comments? So, Councillor Hyatt to receive, excuse me, this report. All in favor? Sorry. I was quiet, I wasn't coughing. Yeah. Report RC 2717 of Don Cook, Trail Coordinator, Committee membership change. Mayor?
A letter of thanks, to be written to David Taylor,
Okay.
and to receive the report for information.
Okay, all those in favor? Oh,
Yeah, the recommendation for the hire, or the, new appointment of, Ranald, McKay.
and letter of
Yeah.
thanks, yes. Yes. Okay, all those in favor, sorry.
Sorry.
Report 2817 of Kate Collins, Tourism Development Coordinator, and Amanda Ferrero, Director of Recreation, Culture, and Tourism. Wow. Actually, Amanda and Kate, if you'd like just to come up, please. The difference between what you're proposing, the advertising and everything that was spoke about for the new map is really incredible. Standardization, the high definition advertising with conformity of color, background, and so on, I think is going to make a big, big difference. Amanda, do you want to just speak to this a little bit, please?
Yeah, just quickly, the blue-green one is just a draft, just to show you what we're proposing, what we think would look good. And maybe I'll just get Kate to talk quickly about how we can do a bit better quality control on some of the advertising in there as well.
Yeah, so the brown copy is from 2012, so this one was previously produced and the advertising sold outside of the township, and we felt that with the trails being such a key component of tourism in Uxbridge, that this is one example where bringing this in-house allows us to ensure that the advertising, one, consistently looks good, no blurry images, etc., and also that the advertising is given a higher priority for businesses within the township. So this is something that we don't have control over unless we take this in-house, and so we can, anyone in the township can purchase advertising, but it can be more relevant to the trails experience.
Just a little bit of background for this. This one right here is the #1 piece of tourism information that gets taken from our tourism trailer, from all of our tourism sites, and people, even residents, know a bit more about our trails and they want a kind of an overview. So we think that we could provide a better product by bringing it in-house. And we also would like to, when somebody comes to the tourism trailer, for instance, and says, where could I go for lunch? Well, if the brochure shows you places to go for lunch, it just makes it that much more relevant. So the ads will be very tourism driven. We will make sure that we get the message out to everyone so they have equal opportunity to advertise in it. But it also assists us with our website. Council agreed that we could sell advertising on the tourism website. The website right now doesn't have as much traffic as we would like, so it's really hard to sell website advertising with little traffic. So this way we can combine advertising on both the trail map and the website, so we get double traction, and we think that will also drive more traffic to our website as well. So it's kind of a win-win for the tourism website as well as this brochure for residents and tourists.
Thank you. Councillor Barton?
Just a question, and I think we talked about it once. Will the advertisers actually have a location on the map. So when you say, I'm just looking at Second Wedge will be number 5, so that people can find.
We might be able to do that. It's
Okay.
gonna depend on whether it makes it look junky or not.
Okay.
So, what we'll do is we'll see who's interested,
Mhm.
and certainly we would like to do something that would tie the two together, but we wanna make sure that the quality is really trails focused. And, a lot of the time, you know, especially with the tourism trailer, we can walk them through the map as well.
Okay.
So, this will come back to you,
Okay.
as a final product.
Okay. I
Yeah.
support that if you can make it work. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Hyatt?
Yeah, I think I asked this question the last time you guys were in about, making an e-version of this. Is that gonna be compatible? Like they can print off their own hard copy should they choose to do so? Is that gonna be available?
Yes,
It
so, we can add digital versions, not necessarily with the advertising, but because we've got trail listings, we can add
Okay.
this graphic onto the website.
So that's an annual fee of $200 for this, right?
Correct.
Both is $250 or $249, whatever?
For the, website, it wouldn't be a full year, so the,
Okay, so it's
this would be, that would be a static, cost, whereas the website part, that would probably be 4 months,
Okay.
and then we might have a different rate for the whole year.
So you've got different schedules based on
Yeah.
what they want, right?
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
20 spots available, is that what you're telling me? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? How would you like to do? Thank you. Thank you for making it easier. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Is there any unfinished business? Any other business? Before I close, anything from the press? From the audience? Okay, I'd like to close, tourism, heritage, and special programs, and pass it on to Parks, Facilities, and Arena. Councillor Ballinger.
Thank you, Councillor Beach, and I bring to your attention Parks, Facilities, and Arena. Bob, do you want to come up the front, please? Thank you. I draw your attention first off to report number PR 16/17 of Bob, the manager of the Arena and Parks. Just before you direct questions to Mr. Ferguson, this goes back to January of 2013. This is 5 years this January now. There's been 7 meetings. Basically, you can see when you read the report who the stakeholders are. When you look at the total picture money, they're asking the township to put in $75,000. That breaks down to 21.5% of the monies that they're asking the township for to put through their budget. Okay, questions to any of the councillors? Councillor Bryan.
A couple quick questions. First one, Bob. I noticed you just say received this report. You don't have an opinion one way or the other?
We've met with the committee that wants to proceed, and basically we're looking for direction from council to support it if they want to refer it to the budget.
Okay, so it doesn't matter to you one way or the other if we go forward?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Yep.
And I guess my next question is, did we not already refer this to budget for 2018? So there's nothing really new here, so it's just, I'll make the motion to receive it for information.
Any other questions from any councillors? Councillor Hyatt?
Yeah, Bob, there's a subsequent letter here from Optimus about how their payment schedule, I guess, will be moving forward. Is the goal here to accumulate that funding to add to this, or is it going to be done as it goes forward? Like, there's nothing in there that really explains that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that letter from the Optimist to the report, just showing that their funding that they're providing will be broken up over the 5-year
So it's
period.
5 times 5, right?
That's correct, yes. Just so council was aware it wasn't a lump sum of $25,000 up front.
So does that mean then we're waiting 5 years to move forward with the project?
No, I think what we would be looking at, if it is supported, that the committee would be looking for the money to be put up front by the township and then paid off by the Optimist Club on that 5-year term.
So it's 100,000, not 75,000.
That's correct.
Councillor Beach.
Just a quick question. The yearly upkeep for a pump park would be similar to the skateboard?
Yeah, from speaking with the committee, and doing some research on it, I would anticipate it would be roughly the same type of upkeep, if we were to go with a paved park.
And what would that roughly be?
I think we run around $5,000 off the top of my head.
Questions from staff? Ingrid, please.
Not a question, just a statement. This came before council not that long ago with a request to allow the Rotary to proceed with a Trillium grant. And it is, as Councillor Bryan said, it is still referred to budget. We wanted to just provide some context as to where things have been, because there really hasn't been anything in recent months in regards to it. So this really, and to Councillor Hyatt's point, the request is actually for the township to fund $1,000, and that the Rotary, or that the Optimist Club would pay $5,000 per year over a 5-year period. So when we're dealing with the budget, you're going to have to think about whether or not you're prepared to put $100,000 into it, not 75.
Any other questions from councillors or staff? Okay, Councillor Barton, please.
Okay. I support this project. I think it will be a great addition to the Fields of Uxbridge. There's almost zero barriers of entry, where for me to drop into the bowl of the skate park, it's just not going to happen unless I want the fire department to get me out. This pump park, I can use it. A 3-year-old who just gets their first Strider bike can use it. There's no barriers to entry. You can move along. The pros will ride it as well. It's a great addition. The cost is fairly minimal, in my opinion. And I think we need to look at, yes, it's $100,000 that we would put towards it, but we certainly have reserves that we could get the Optimist Club to pay us back. So the money we're spending is 75. It will be $100,000 for 5 years. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Bryan has moved the recommendation. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, report number PR 1717, and this to deal with the soccer club agreement. Questions, please. Councillor Bryan.
Just one quick question, Bob. With regard to the canteen, just so I'm clear, so only the soccer club would have access to it? Like every time I've been there, it's only been the soccer club's been there anyway, so I'm not sure of the other usage or how that would work. So hopefully you can help me.
Yeah, so currently, because the soccer club will be the primary user of the facility right now, they would have, we're looking into a 5-year contract with them. They would be the only users of the canteen. Yep.
Worship, Mayor?
Just on that, Bob, what happens when the baseball fields are ready? I mean, I think that everybody should have the opportunity of visiting the canteen, and when the other facilities, be it the pump park or the skate ramps, should they not have the opportunity to use a canteen as well and washrooms?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we talked with the soccer club getting into this agreement, and it was part of their concerns as well. They didn't want to be paying the full freight if other park users were using it. So that's why we've come up with the fee and the term of the contract. So when there is more things added up to the Fields of Uxbridge, we would be able to look at that, whether it be we could tender out the snack bar, we could have all those options for ourselves, as well as other people putting funding into paying for washroom cleaning and so forth.
But, so what happened, like, what's it cost us for washroom facilities now for the skate park?
Right now, just the portable toilet at $700.
$700. It seems silly to me that we're putting a portable toilet in there for skate park when we're going to be building some new washroom facilities.
So we just have to look at, because of the location right now, and there's not a lot of things around it, opening and closing those washrooms and leaving them out open all day out of that on the weekend when there's possibly nothing else taking place. I think the cost of having a portable toilet there to protect our facility until we see what the usage is probably a good idea.
Okay. I just look at the cost of keeping a washroom open from May till the end of September is $12,000. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
And it's only open for soccer.
Any other questions? Councillor Burton.
Bob, we had a porta potty there all this summer?
We didn't have one there this summer, no. We want to have one there moving forward.
Okay.
We had one there the year before, and one didn't get placed there this year.
Okay.
They were using the porta potties at the soccer club.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Worship?
So, does the club realize this contract, I understand, is for 5 years? Is that what you said?
That's correct.
So, do they understand that after 5 years, that this contract should or could change?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's just as much of a concern to the soccer club as well when we were in talks with them, because as I said before, as the fields develop out there, and we get baseball using it, we see the new pool, all that kind of stuff, they don't want to be on the hook for the whole bill for the cleaning and stuff like that. And then we also discussed the fact with the canteen that we would have the option to go out to tender and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hyatt.
Yeah, thanks. Through you to Bob. So just to be clear, they're giving us the $50,000 capital up front.
That's correct.
Plus now you're asking them for $4,000 a year over 5 years.
That's correct.
So their total in would be $70,000. Question with them about that ongoing 5-year thing? They're okay with it?
Yeah, so
in addition to the 50? Or are they thinking this is in lieu of the 50?
No, this is they're aware of the contract that we put in place. Amanda and I have sat down with them and discussed what's there and what the term of their agreement is. So they also have a storage facility on site that they will use, and that's what their contribution went to as well. It's not great for the canteen. That building has a storage room there as well as a community room on site.
So if, just to the mayor's point, if any other users were to come on side with using that building, how would you restructure the agreement with soccer, or would you?
Well, I think the only thing that would come up would be the canteen. So the soccer would retain their storage room that they have in the building.
Okay.
The only thing that would come up would be the canteen. And obviously the fee structure for cleaning of the washrooms.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Any other questions? Okay, when I received this report, I called Mr. Ferguson to ask if he had met with the soccer club and sat down and discussed it, in which case he said he had, and I asked him how did they receive it, and he said they received it fine. They're aware of what's going on. Okay, can I have someone move this report, please? Councillor Bryan, all in favor, please. And that is carried. Unfinished business. Okay, other business, could I have someone, this correspondence, that we receive it, please? Dave, your ward, it's Shador, Leasdale.
Oh, yeah, of course. So let's receive that from the Lions Club.
A motion to receive from Mr. Barton, all in favor? And that's okay. Now, yes, let's go over to the newspaper. You're okay. Anyone in the public? Good morning. You're okay. It's afternoon now. Okay. Is there any other business? New business? Okay. Mr. Paperman.
Sorry, Councillor, it just occurred to me. When the Lions Club was in here earlier making their presentation, what was Council's decision on their request for financial assistance on this? Refer to budget? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to end this session. I'm going to pass it on to Tuesday. If it's Mr. Barton, if you would do sustainability, please.
I will. It will be a pretty short meeting. I'll open this meeting of Sustainability, Watershed and Conservation. I will begin with unfinished business. Other business? Questions of the press? I will close this meeting of Sustainability Watershed and Conservation, and I'll pass this off to Councillor Fred Bryan.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll call to order this meeting of Public Works and Operations. First item of correspondence, item 194, Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change, Transfer of Review Program.
Yes.
Thought you were telling me to turn mine off. Questions, concerns, comments? Councillor Hyatt.
Yeah, I've read this 3 times, Ben, and I still don't know what it means. Could you explain it? What are they doing other than sending out memos?
The plan is to allow municipalities to issue certificate of approvals for sewage works related to stormwater, storm sewers, rather than the Ministry of the Environment. It doesn't really affect us because one of the criteria is that you have to have 2 engineers on staff. So,
Was this a regional thing?
I think Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority was pushing it, as well as the Ministry of the Environment. It's meant to speed up the approvals process.
So it really has no bearing because we don't have 2 engineers.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone like to make a motion with this?
I'll give you a motion to receive it.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Carried. Next item, report to committee, report PWO 8017 of Karen Rill, facility booking clerk, Republic Access defibrillators. Mayor O'Connor.
Just a quick question. When you look at the report on page 60, it gives us monitor for security, fire, and defib, and then just for fire, and then just for security, and one that's not monitored at all. So I guess what my question is why are they not all monitored for security, fire, and defib?
Security is an issue in the halls because there's so many different people going in and out. So we've never monitored for security. The Goodwood's a little different. It's a bit of a security system inside, but the arena, the pool, the library, and the township office, the same people are coming and going, opening and closing every day. Security in the other halls is in the rural halls are difficult because of the renters, and everybody would have to be issued a new code to get in, and it just becomes problematic. Fire, we only really monitor for fire, music hall. I guess that's sort of obvious. You don't want that one to go up in flames. Senior Center and the Sanford Hall, they're monitored for fire basically because of the kitchen and the grills and all that stuff.
Why wouldn't Goodwood be?
They have stoves. They don't really have a grill.
Okay.
Councillor Barton.
Yeah, Ben, just preparing for this, I did a little bit of research on smoke detectors are difficult from what I understand, just because you can have false, they can go off when there's not actually a problem. There's a Honeywell are now making heat detectors that if the temperature rises by more than 20 degrees in 15 minutes or something, the only real cause of that would be a fire. And that might, and the faults are pretty minimal. I'm wondering if we should do wireless systems. We have internet in every hall now. If we should do a wireless system that will respond. The costs are pretty small. It might save us a ton of money. Ben, any
thoughts
comments
on that?
That we can look into that. If you wanna refer that to budgets, then
Sure.
that's
Want to
fine.
make a motion to refer that to budget
Sure,
and receive this and refer that to budget?
Sure.
That's your motion?
yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor from Councillor Barton to receive this information, receive for information, and motion that back to budgets for wireless. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Next item, report PWO of Ben Kester, Director of Public Works and Operations, re-traffic calming on Elgin Park Drive. Questions, concerns, comments? Mayor O'Connor.
These on, recommendation 1 and 2. The costs.
So those were the two I didn't
I-
recommend.
I know. I'm sorry, but, you've got,
Speed humps are a real problem for the fire department, I'll say that right now.
well, then put rumble strips in. You know what, we've had a number of accidents there in the wintertime because of the, degree of the, road. You know what, when you have the number of people crossing from Showbrook to that plaza, I don't know why Main Street, why you'd paint lines across Main Street North. What good is that doing? Our whole thing here is that the concern for people living in Showbrook who don't go to the corner because it's half a block away,
The safest place for those people at Showbrook to cross is at the lights. I know it's a little out of their way, but that's the
but they're
safest
not
place.
doing that, Ben.
I know they're not doing it, but they should.
And that's my concern, is
should.
that they're not doing it because they can come out the side door there and
Oh, I know.
so I firmly believe that we have to have something there.
To that end, before I go to Councillor Beach, Councillor Ballinger and I are meeting with the residents of Showbrook on December 2nd. They've asked for us to come in and chat with them about the regional issues and the ward issues, and this is certainly something that we can talk about. Did I take your thunder?
Pardon me?
Did I take your thunder on that? Is that what you were going to say?
I was gonna say part of it, but
Okay,
I have some
I'll
other
come back to
things
you.
to
Sorry,
say.
it's over to Councillor Beach, then Councillor Ballinger, and then to Councillor Hyatt.
Okay, the only problem with the rumple strips, I mean, the seniors may find that that's noisy, which I agree. I think there is some validity to painted lines or, you know, slow down pedestrians or something like that, because they certainly use them in Europe, in Ireland, Scotland, a number of other places, and that's a main thing for direction of traffic, slowing down, et cetera, so that shouldn't be discarded.
Councillor Ballinger, and then over to Councillor Hyatt.
Okay, in reading through this, I really believe that the radar speed signs that run off of Solo, I really believe they work. Just going down, on the way down the region all the time, when I go down by Chalk Lake, boy, I can be speeding and that just flashes up, you know, I'm over the speed limit, so I really like the idea of putting a radar speed sign there off Elgin Park Drive to slow down people. That's my thoughts on it.
Councillor Hyatt?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to hear that you're meeting with the people from Showbrook, because I'm not quite sure how many. Number 2, Ben, do you have any data on that intersection as to far as usage, speeds? If not, can we set something up to track who's using that intersection and what speed, just
Right.
before you get to Main and, or Toronto Street rather, in Elgin Park Drive? I'm assuming we're talking about the people coming down the hill to the light?
Yeah.
Do we have any numbers on that?
I
If we're gonna start adding flashing signs and rumble strips or whatever, I think we need to know
I
what
know
we're
I
talking
have
about.
traffic counts on Elgin Park Drive, but I'm not sure where they were taken. I have to look.
Can I suggest that we that, and plus the meeting that you guys are having, and see what we're up against here? Do we?
Already have a motion from Mayor O'Connor to get pricing for the rumble strips.
Well,
I don't have,
I don't have any opposition to that. I don't know if, Mayor O'Connor, you wanna make any amendments, or I can make a subsequent motion.
No, you know what? I would like, I'll withdraw my, my motion because I was not aware that you were meeting with the residents, so I'm prepared to wait until after I hear back from the residents, and
Okay.
I know a great many of them use the drugstore across the road, as well as their doctors are across the road. There's hardly a day I go by there that somebody isn't in the roadway somewhere. All I'm trying to do is make people aware that, you know, there's seniors in walkers and in wheelchairs that are...
Yeah, and with all due respect, Your Worship, that meeting was just confirmed this morning, so that's why you weren't aware of it.
Yeah.
So maybe you guys can come back and tell us what's going on.
Absolutely. Okay, so what's your motion then, Councillor Hyatt?
Well, I'll wait from your meeting and see. Maybe I'll withdraw and wait and see what comes from that.
So what...
Why don't we receive this for
Receive.
information and ask the two councillors, Regional Councillor Ballinger and the Ward Councillor, Fred Bryan, to report back to us.
All right. All in favor of that motion? Carried.
Just as a subsequent comment, I'm not quite sure how we can make that safer if there's already a traffic light there. You know, you can add strips or paint or, you know, clowns. I don't know what would work there, but it's... If
Okay.
they're not using the intersection properly, then anyway, I'll wait to see how your meeting goes.
Okay. Is there any unfinished business? Any other business? Questions from the press? Is that a yes, Roger, or no? I can just see your hand coming over the thing. This is yes, that's no. Okay, thank you. Bishop Durkin, nothing? Okay, thank you very much. I will close this meeting of Public Works and Operations and pass it to Councillor Hyatt for Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you. I'll open Planning and Economic Development, Correspondence 195, regarding affordable housing and seniors housing task force. Next, Ben. Report, Councillor Ballinger.
I should comment on this because I spent 6 months with affordable housing at the region with the task force. I'm just going to give you some highlights. It's been passed down at the region. But the first thing people have to understand is that Ontario is the only province in Canada to have downloaded to municipalities the responsibility of funding and administrating social housing. So they're the only ones. They've downloaded it to the region in this case. So the meeting was set up, and there's a need to create more affordable housing for low and moderate incomes households. And there's a need also for housing choices for seniors. When you look at the seniors in Durham region, 73% of them own their house. What they're asking is, you know, they have some money, but they'd like to downsize and they'd like to have a different choices. When you look at the rental housing, in the last 20 years, there's only been 1.7% housing completions that are rental. In the region of Durham right now, there's 6,860 people waiting for affordable housing. And I can say Uxbridge is less than 1% of that. So I wanted to, we broke it down to how's the best way to, we had people come in actually from other countries, we had people come in from other regions to see what they were doing. And we broke it down to 6 things that we have to do. And there was an online survey as well. And one thing that stood out, the region has to take the lead and there has to be action, not all talk. There has to be some kind of action. We've got to remove some of these barriers that are holding us back. We may have to look at development charges. We may have to look at, and what the Ontario government's doing now is look at surplus lands. Surplus lands. Look at schools. Good example is go out to Epsom. Epsom, there's a school sitting there now empty. Look at not demolishing buildings, but using those buildings, fix them up, and let's get them so they can be affordable for people. So there's a lot of things come up in the report, at the very end, we ended up with 34 recommendations. Not feasible. Not feasible, all 34 recommendations, but there's some things we can do. And we can even do it here in our own community. We can take a look at our surplus lands. So, I support what the region's doing, and I guess this is just for information, but there's a lot of things happening out there, and we're getting behind. In the last year, we have 784 more people that have gone on the waiting list. In 1 year. And if we don't do something about it, it's going to get worse. So, that's my comments, Mr. Chair, and we should receive it.
Motion to receive. Any other comments? Mayor O'Connor?
I think it should be received, but I also think a copy of it should go to the Township Housing Committee.
Barton?
Yeah, I work in this space when I'm not here, and from my perspective, the issue is with supply. And the reason we have supply problems with rental housing is the return on investment is very difficult. You've got, last year was a 1.8% increase that landlords could increase rent. But, taxes went up 3.5%, hydro, often goes up 10%. Labor costs go up, up and up and up. So that's one of the issues. Then, we've got the housing tribunals that, so if someone doesn't pay rent, it can take me 3 and 4 months to get someone out, just to wait for dates. In which case, I'm out $5,000 and $10,000 per unit. So the return on investment is not there to buy rental property. The only reason it makes sense for us right now is because the real estate's going up so much. So there's my rant.
I have a question for Jack. Did they discuss at all the economics of it, as Councillor Barton has alluded to? I mean, it's fine and dandy to say we need low-income rental, affordable housing.
No,
have they done any kind of math to prove that, A, it's probably financially ridiculous, or, have they done any of that?
That's interesting, Councillor Hyatt, that you brought that up, because that was discussed. And was there a solution on the spot? No. Except there was one thing, that 4 ladies appeared before us from Port Perry. And they couldn't afford the homes. 2 of them, I think, had lost their husbands. They got together and drew up their own contract, and the 4 of them are in the same house, so they're all paying 25% of the cost. So it comes down to how innovative can we be? Can we get outside of the box? What can we do? Can we say, we got surplus land here, 2 acres, let's put a tender out there and see if the land was donated to the people, to the builders, who would come in and build on it at a low cost? Would the region defer, would they defer the costs, for their development charges? And that was another thing. So there's a lot of things in there. But I understand what Mr. Barton's saying.
But I think that's a part that's always missing in these things, is that they've never done an analysis to see, A, is it feasible, and what is feasible, and then let's go down that road instead of making these grand proclamations. Anyway.
Well, one of those 6 points, Councillor Hyatt, was that the region and other regions have to lobby with the provincial government and get some help from those people. They can't just dump it on the communities and on the region.
They got to do the math too. Okay, we have a motion from Mayor O'Connor. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, Region Durham, 196, the Building Business Forum.
196, 197, 198, receive for information.
Receive. Any questions? No? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 199, Tilsonburg.
Let's receive it for information.
Motion to receive. Questions? No? All in favor? Carried. 200. This is a motion to remove the H from the say.
Refer to staff.
Refer to staff. Questions? Dave? No?
Well, I was just going to say, this was a difficult file, and at the end, I'm happy with what we all accomplished, and the OMB hearing proved that we did the right thing.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Excuse me. Report DS 7017. It's regarding architectural control at 2 Douglas.
Can I just say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a question on this. I noticed that they're still bringing the Wendy's and the Starbucks there, but now I'm seeing a sign for Symposium. Does that change anything on this? Do we know?
I would think they're in the
My
plaza.
understanding Symposium is in the main building, the big building at the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wasn't quite sure of, and I couldn't find it anywhere in this, so, okay. Thank you.
Councillor, I'll start with Mayor O'Connor.
I don't understand why we need signage on all 4 sides of a building. Anyway, we saw that with, the one that we did last week with, Kentucky Fried Chicken. For the life of me, I don't understand that, why you have signage on the back, the front, and both sides. Why aren't we suggesting that they put one sign out the front, like we've done on the other, actually almost across the street from this, where it lists everybody that's in that plaza. And then they can have a storefront sign if they wish. And I refer to the bulk barn, that plaza there. Why can we not do one sign out front saying there's a Starbucks, there's a Symposium, there's a Wendy's, there's a whatever, all in there?
So are you suggesting they not have signage on the building?
They can have one sign.
One sign?
But not 4 sides.
I mean, I think I can answer your question is why is it all the way around? It's because these buildings are freestanding out in the middle of a parking lot. They're not like the
I
big building
that,
is
but
just that's the part you see. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not sure I didn't make their.
Yeah. Well, I just.
Whereas the other 2 restaurants are kind of parked out in the front, right?
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you see it on Toronto Street and then you turn in, you need to be able to identify it when you're on the other side of it. I think is probably.
I'm assuming that's
on
why they did this, but I could be wrong. Anyway. So what do you want to do with this, folks?
Well, you know what? Is the signage just for the downtown core? Where it says that you can only have it on one side?
Oh.
Is that Heritage?
Table it?
Yeah, let's table it.
Okay. Councillor, what's your name again? Brian? I was going to call you Hyatt, but. Motion to table, all in favor? Carried. All right. DS 7117. You want to come on up, Amelia, please? Give her a sec. Councillor Beach, you have a question.
Yes, at one point it says concession 3 and it's not concession 3 in this report, and.
Where are you? What page?
DS 7117.
I know, but what?
Oh gosh, I didn't write down where it was. But anyways, also, it doesn't clearly show where the property is being divided. Yeah, in Liz's report. Do you have anything, Amelia?
So, I know I have one report going on for Hans Steele. What's is this the one, or?
Oh, this is the,
You're being
severance.
asked questions about Liz's report.
Yeah, if you
on
know
the
of
land
anything
division.
for land division.
Oh, I'm not sure if I can comment on that, given that I didn't work on that.
Okay.
When is this going to land division? Does it say? December 11th.
It's something that would be really good to know, and because it doesn't give you any clear indication where the division is taking place.
So table it.
You want to table it?
Yeah, I'd like to table it.
Okay. 4th? Yes?
Yeah, sorry?
Table it to December 4th.
Yes, please.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay. There's an addendum for planning. DS 7217. It's a C of A application for 6 Sangster. We tabled this. Can I get a motion to take it from the table, please? Councillor Bryan, all in favor? Carried. we wanna do with this report?
I wanna know what they're doing. I have no idea.
Do you know what they're doing?
On Sangster Road?
Yeah.
So they're adding a brand-new building, which is going through the process of site plan application. They've come to the Committee of Adjustment for a few zoning infractions.
I know, but, excuse me for interrupting you, but we tabled this last week, I believe.
Yes.
Was last week, because the drawings aren't clear. We have absolutely no idea, when you look at the drawings, and the drawings weren't included this week, and unfortunately I didn't save them from last week. But there's relief from 12 different things here. And I really feel we need to have a good understanding, and that's why it was tabled, as to what they're trying to do. And where are these reliefs? Because the paper itself, or the map itself, was not clear that we got last week. And when you have that many variances, I think we need to be very careful and make sure that we know what's going on. Because I can tell you, the people living across the road from this thing, who have been very vocal in the past, okay, are gonna be asking us questions, and right now, I can't tell them.
Councillor Beach? Take your stab, go for it.
It's complicated. What I would suggest is you can delay it again if that's what you choose, and we could ask them to come in and explain it. That might be an option. But there are a number of studies that they need to do. While they may end up receiving the variance right now from council or from the Committee of Adjustment, that doesn't necessarily mean that all those variances will actually take place. And the reason is that there are studies related to groundwater recharge and various other things, because it is in a source water protection area as well, that they may not be able to comply with those requirements. And unfortunately, those studies, it's just a matter of the way they've decided to go at this. They've decided to try to go through the Committee of Adjustment to get the variances at the same time while they're still working on their studies. And so if the studies indicate that they've occupied too much of the property with the building and they cannot achieve the groundwater recharge numbers that need to happen, then variance or not, they will not be able to proceed with what it is that they want to do. So it's really becoming more of a timing issue on the timing of those reports, and the timing of the Committee of Adjustment, I think, is probably the safe way to put it. So we can delay it.
Should that condition be added to the C of A meeting? You have that in there?
Report, right, that they meet all the conditions?
Oh, of course, yes, yeah.
Did you wanna let this proceed, Mayor O'Connor, or do you wanna say what?
I don't like to delay anything, but honestly, I'm not comfortable with this. So as much as I don't like to delay it, I would like to wait until we have a full understanding. And are we, even though they can meet all the criteria, particularly the amount of land that is going to be developed, I don't know how they can meet that. That's always going to be an exemption, because this is huge exemptions here. So I'd like to table it, bring them in. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to do it hand in hand, and I certainly respect that. But when there's that many different variances, I am not comfortable. Personally, I mean, I'm only one member of this committee, and I'll certainly look to others for different ideas, but...
Do you have a question before we retable? Sure. Go ahead.
It was said last week that we wanted to have a meeting to get an idea for what was going on in detail. Yeah, that somebody was going to meet with them. But the studies aren't complete. Okay, that's what I just wanted to make clear.
certainly, go ahead.
A tabletop exercise in a council chamber is gonna be a bit complicated on, you know, where every single line is. If I could suggest that maybe a meeting be held with Mayor O'Connor, who actually comes to all of the pre-cons and probably was at this pre-con back in,
No, it wasn't,
no?
unfortunately.
But usually you do come, and
Yeah.
you're also chair of planning at the region. Councillor Hyatt, who's chair of planning for Uxbridge, and the ward councillor. If there's a level of comfort with those three, then we can carefully go through it. I just think this doesn't lend itself to being able to go through the fine strokes on what all of these are in this forum. So if you would consider that.
So you wanna make a motion to table pending this meeting? Is that
Sure.
what you're- Okay. Any questions?
And then maybe what we can do is we can bring back a map that we can put up on the screen so everybody can see,
it. That's a good idea.
what's being suggested here.
Okay, there's a motion to table pending a meeting?
Yeah, well,
Fourth?
we'll get it back as soon as we can, okay?
Okay. Questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any unfinished business for planning?
Yes, please. I'd
Mayor
like to put a motion, forward that a letter be written to the Regional Planning Department, expressing our, desire to get employment land, both, serviced and not serviced, in a regional, ROP, Regional Official Plan. Because we're running out of land. There's people that want to come here for industry. We have no land that's been zoned, either in the Regional Official Plan or in our own. And we all know how long it takes for that process to get moving. So I think a letter is very appropriate, and hopefully by the end of 2018 we'll have something.
Okay. Questions? Dave? Any question? All in favor? Carried. Any other business? Any unfinished business? There being none, I will adjourn planning and pass it over to Mayor O'Connor for administration. Oh, my apologies. I'm wearing two hats today, so let's, yes, Roger, go ahead.
A number of questions, Councillor, if I may. In response to the discussion on affordable and rental housing, the task force, since as Councillor Ballinger says, the province has downloaded social housing onto the municipalities, once again I ask, if they've done that, have they given you the tools to handle things like this, like requiring developers to at least build a portion of their subdivisions or whatever as rental housing, or even low-cost housing?
I'm not sure whether you actually have the tools to be able to do that.
You don't have that power at all?
No. We can suggest, but we can't demand, I guess that's the right word.
They downloaded housing, with no strings attached to anybody. Just here,
Because being a senior, I've been a senior for a couple of years now, there is absolutely nothing to rent in this town. Nothing. And if I should lose the apartment I'm in now, it's goodbye Uxbridge. We have nothing. That's just a comment. On the application by hand still, when the Committee of Adjustment gets an application like that with so many requests to relief this and relief that, relief the other, shouldn't there be something on the Committee of Adjustment that tells them this is something council should be handling and not us?
We'll make recommendations to them as well, that we can support it, we can't support it. Here's the areas that we're concerned about and that sort of thing. But until we get a clear understanding of what's going on, that's why I made the motion to table it and then bring back a map. But, you know, they have the right to make this application for these exemptions, and we're going through a process.
Yeah, it brings us back, Mayor, to a discussion we had some time ago about what is a minor variance and what isn't. Yeah, and in the same discussion, you were saying that if I got you right, there is no land in Uxbridge Township that is currently zoned industrial, except for the two parks.
There is, I believe, is there one lot still left at Pioneer? Yeah, I don't know of any land outside of the Uxbridge Industrial Park that's still available. It's all been bought.
Is that Greenbelt Act?
Why it's not being zoned, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, probably having to do with it. But also, the region of Durham, as long as it's left in the Uxbridge Industrial, but it has all been purchased now. And the reason that Hans Steel is in this situation is that they do have the option, and you've heard me say this before, of purchasing land from the gentleman to the north of them who owns a business called Stovall Glass. But for whatever reasons, they obviously haven't come to
Just to be clear, Mayor, if I may, are you saying that Uxbridge cannot zone land industrial without the region's permission?
Right.
Okay. Thank you kindly. I appreciate it.
Any other questions from the press? Public? No one? Okay.
Okay, our lunch has been here for half an hour, so God help us what it tastes like.
You want to do
So
admin
let's
then?
quickly go through this. Administration Committee. 201, I think that what we need to do with that, if I could suggest it, is we need to support it with a letter. Okay, and this is from Ernie Hardeman, wanting to update us on the 148 bill regarding fair workplace and better jobs, and it is to do with maintaining the status quo for volunteer firefighters.
I'll give you that motion.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried.
Mayor O'Connor, if I can,
yeah.
could I make a subsequent motion that a letter also be written to our existing MPP? I mean, it's great that they're doing this from
Yeah.
the opposition point of view, but really, it should be our MPP that's representing us on this, so.
Yeah.
Can I make that?
They
You
always
do?
copy
Okay.
it. Okay.
No worries, thank you.
202 is from the Region of Durham to Honorable Kathleen Wynne regard Rowan's Law Advisory Committee, and I think we just received it for information by Councillor Fred Bryan. All those in favor? Carried. 203 is Tony Laria, Chair, Uxbridge Dog Park Advisory Committee, re-update on the Uxbridge off-leash dog park. Getting great use, unbelievable use, and contrary to the letter to the editor, anybody I've spoken to is really, really happy about it. We need to add more trees and seating, but that will come. So I think we just receive it for information. Councillor Barton, all those in favor? Carried. Correspondence 204 from Robert Bishop and Jennifer Durkin, 205 Sharon Nielsen, 206 Ian Newton, and 207 Dana Maureen Coxworth are all regarding the proposed designation of 51st Avenue, and I am going to suggest that we do the same as we've done with others, refer it to staff's report.
Sure, I was going to make a motion to receive for information, but sure.
Yeah. Well, there's just a report coming back from staff, so, okay. Questions?
Question on 204.
Yeah.
Mr. Bishop had a request in there to confirm who this consultant is.
Pardon me?
Is there a way for us to confirm who the consultant is? I guess maybe clerks can do that. I don't have that information, so. second last paragraph.
Yeah, so that request was made, at the last meeting, that there was items regarding 51st Avenue, and I will get back to the bishops with a
Will you?
response.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Report 5517 of Catalina Blumenberg. Oh, sorry, we missed one piece of correspondence. 208 is Kathy Christoph regarding the Roxy Theaters, annual ladies' night, movies, martinis, and manicures, for January 25th and February the 1st, and she would like to see it declared as a municipal significant event, and the money does come back, so I think we can support it. Moved by Councillor Barton. All those in favor? Carried. Going back to Councillors' committee schedule for 2018. Receive it. Councillor Bryan?
I just have one quick comment on that. Is it possible to get it in the form that we used to have it, where it would have it all listed as a date as opposed to colors? Is that, just me specifically? That would be great.
Oh, me too.
Great, yeah, thank you. I just like the actual list rather than the colors.
Well, I did have trouble with a couple of the colors, but red and the pink, yeah. Okay, any other finished business? Oh, receive for information, yeah, by Fred. Okay, so any unfinished business? Any other business? Any questions, press?
Well,
Sorry.
just wondering why you'd give the approval to Kathy's manicures and martinis. It's most discriminatory. No men allowed.
Oh.
I'm just saying.
You can go and have a pedicure or a manicure. It's called it.
Oh, is that yours?
No. Roger, it's called manicure.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just clarify for the, Elgin Park Drive?
Sure.
What was I know that you recalled your motion. Are you guys waiting for the meeting and more data?
We're going to wait until the regional councillor and the ward councillor come back after that meeting.
Okay, so there
Okay.
wasn't a specific one
Yeah.
chosen. Okay.
Anything else from the press? Nothing? Anybody in the audience has a question? No? Okay. Gonna break, Adnan, you came from time for lunch. We'll